Let's get ready to RPG!
RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG!
Hello, good evening. Welcome, everyone. I guess I went straight to the PDF. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Knights of the Last Call. My name is Derek Melinda. And tonight we're back with first look number 3. We've been on quite a first look tear recently. Crushing through the queue, at least we're trying to. And tonight's first look is brought to us by the Knights of the Last Call patrons, in this case particularly Thaddeus, who put this on our queue a little while ago, actually, but it's kind of been getting bumped down due to other people. But we're finally here, and tonight we're going to be covering DIERPG, the role-playing game, the TTRPG. As far as I could tell, that is actually the name of the game. It's called DIERPG, the role-playing game, and it is a role-playing game. So now, as you may have surmised from the thumbnail, I know absolutely nothing about this. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing it right. I don't know if it's supposed to be German, if it's supposed to be DRPG, like the RPG, and it's German. I actually know absolutely nothing about this at all. I'm going to assume it's from some sort of comic, anime, television show. I'm going to go with video game or anime is what I'm probably going to go with. I know nothing about it. Now, if it is one of those, are we going to get tricked into reading microfiction? I don't know. What I do know is we've mostly been doing a lot of quick starts recently, games that are not even officially out yet, just had a Kickstarter, have some sort of free thing. This, on the other hand, is fully out there, and it is I just downloaded the PDF like 2 seconds ago, and it's like 400 pages. So strap in, folks. It's gonna get frosty. This is by Rowan Deckard and Rook, or Rowan, Rook, and Deckard, who have made some of the other games that we have looked at somewhat recently. These are the sort of the Grant Howitt games, right? The Heart, the Spires. So that tells me nothing except to, again, strap in. I have no idea what to expect. Lastly, while downloading this game, or buying it, I should say, I discovered it won the Origins Award in 2023 for Game of the Year, which means it is either really good or more likely very weird. So, anyways, I have no idea what to expect. And again, as we learned from Heart and as we learned from Spire, the Rowan games are very weird. So we'll see what we're going to have, what we're getting ourselves into. And we'll go from there. So what's up, everybody in chat? Good to see you here. Edward is really excited to see what people think of the concept. Cephalopod, good to see you here. Live, long time, no chat. Good to have you here. Tails, Avison, always pleasure. Garblag, welcome, welcome. Muzgrob, good to see you. Thanks for joining. The Patreon, that is. Wes, K-Tube, Zipperfist. That I don't know. Again, I wasn't really paying, this was never on my radar, something I wasn't really particularly paying attention for. Have you read the graphic novels for Die? Is it Die? Is it D? I don't know. But no, I have not. Let's see. Aliznet says, Die is a comic. They made a comic about people who play role-playing games and decided they would do a role-playing game at the same time. So it's a comic about people who play role-playing games. Okay. So remember, I don't watch television, I don't watch movies, and I don't watch anything. So no, I have not watched the anime. Also, I hate anime. So all very fair. What's up, Edward?
Edward tipped $5. How long are you planning on streaming? I'm planning to extend your look at this one if I needed. I'd like as much covered as possible. Clobster Roll tipped $20. I think your streams from yesterday infected me. I was really going off today in the Discord. Anyway, can only stay for an hour. Got my Dagger Heart campaign finale tonight.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Clobster Roll. Yeah, so I streamed yesterday. I guess I streamed twice. I streamed on Roll for Combat, where apparently I was cooking. I was going off, and then later I did a middle of the night stream, where I don't think I was going off quite so much, Clobster Roll, but I mean I guess I was being a little bit more hot takey than normal, right? But thank you, Clobster Roll. As to answer your question, Edward, also congrats on wrapping up your Daggerheart campaign. Full campaign or just like 1 tier, 2 tiers, the whole jazz? Hey, Avison, great, thank you. I hate weird numbers, and I love first looks. You know what? That's a lethal combination. Thank you, Avison. Appreciate you crushing out our support first looks goal already, right off the rip. Avison, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate you. And by the way, this is one of those games, unlike some of the quick starts, which are free, or like when we did Tunnels and Trolls, which they paid us to do, which was cool. This is a game that I bought with my own money. So, again, thank you so much for supporting it. It really means a lot to me. If you do end up picking up the game, we do have a link in the doobly-doo. That's our affiliate link for DriveThruRPG. If you use that link, it'll set a cookie. So anything you use we'll get like a 1% back. Doesn't cost you anything extra, but if you spend $40, we get like 40 cents credit or something like that. That we don't really get cash back. We just use it to buy stuff mostly. Usually I use it actually to give gift cards away when we do stuff like that. That being said, we are going to do a first look here tonight, but I do want to cover a couple things. Number one, thank you so much to everyone for supporting me. It means a lot to me. Thank you so much to everybody who's been joining and signing up for our Northern Reaches campaign. Now, every year when we kick off our Northern Reaches campaign, we always get a surge of people signing up, upgrading their Patreon memberships. They want to be able to get some of those premium tickets options so that they can unlock some extra character slots or buy some of the group buffs that are available for the community. Always really appreciate that. That is kicking off in just a couple days. So on Monday. So if you're interested at all in Pathfinder 2, if you're interested at all in our mega game, please go ahead and check us out, northernreaches.org. That'll kind of answer all your questions. We do have some other mega games in the works that we've been working on. Actually, someone reached out to me today. I'm not going to name names yet.
Insight tip $25. Are there any games that you'd like to do a first look on that isn't on the list?
Oh, Insight. That's a great question. Insight, I think part of the appeal of doing the first looks is that it helps remove my biases. Now, I will admit I don't do this as much as I used to. But I used to have a thing. I don't listen to as okay, I'm going off on a rant here. But I don't listen to much. I don't listen to as much music as I used to. Um well, I don't know, maybe for a bunch of reasons. But I used to have a rule that every year in December, because it was Christmas time anyways, in December, or usually basically at the end of the year, November, December, I would always take like a month, or at least I would take a couple weeks. And it wasn't like, a hard and fast rule, but I would take a couple of weeks where I would basically like sign in. I would like sign out of my Spotify account and basically sign into like as like a brand new user, or like a incognito mode, just so that I could get exposed to new music slash current music slash popular music, as a way to sort of break my biases, especially now that we're in this world where, the algorithms and stuff only feed you more and more stuff that you already like, because it goes, oh, they like this, they're going to click on this. Oh, they like this, they're going to click on this. And I find that kind of, traps you in this sort of echo chamber of your own making. Anyways, it's a way of saying that the first look system, since we've moved it mostly to essentially Patreon supporting it, and putting things on the list, is really cool for me, because it allows me to sort of maybe look at games that I would normally have never looked at. I would never have picked up this game. So now, it doesn't mean I'm going to love every single one of the games, but it does do a really good job of sort of me breaking through, that that sort of bias and that sort of walled garden of my own making, right? So, so thank you for that. But no, I mean, really, honestly, no. I will say, in all truthfulness, even though I'm sure it's going to be a horrible, horrendous, painful slog, we do have a couple of games on the first look queue that I myself am really interested in, and one of them is His Majesty the Worm. Just because I think everyone's been talking about that game, and I think the tarot cards are neat. I think tarot decks are cool. I used to do tarot readings.
$25.
Hey, Scotty.
Carl first look when $5.8 million crowdfunded so far.
Oh boy. Well, I don't think there's a quick start for it, so we're gonna have to wait on that one, Scotty, for sure. You guys are crazy.
Cephalopod tipped $5. Been dying to see you cover this game. Loved it after running one-shots of the beta version, and tomorrow I'm running the final session of my first full die adventure, so this is lovely timing.
Oh, fantastic, Seth. Great to hear it. Yeah, we'll see. We'll get into it. Again, I did think it was a little weird, and again, I had to be sort of schooled, right? I had to be educated about like Heart and Inspire, about specific elements of the Britishness that I kind of missed. But that being said, I still thought that those games were really, really cool. Just some of the weirdness missed me. So we'll have to see where we get here. But I have a very high level of respect for these designers. So we'll see where we get from that. But that's really cool. Thank you, Cephalopod. But yeah, so Scotty, I don't necessarily, I don't know, how do I say this? I don't know when we're gonna get to it. I guess when the game comes out, I assume we'll probably take a look at it. But yeah, I mean, it's doing a lot of money for sure. I mean, I did see just too that the Cyberpunk Red game just finished for like 22 million or something like that. The TCG, not an RPG. But long story short, I have no interest in Dungeon Crawler Carl. Remember, I think lit RPG, Isekai is horrible. I don't really like it at all. Anyways, I think His Majesty the Worms looked really cool, and which was put up there by Ryan. And I'm really looking forward to when we get to Middle Earth role playing, which we put up there as kind of like a joke, but we're actually going to go back and look at the original MERP, which I remember as a kid, I was like, thought it looked so cool. And of course, it's a horrible, like old school, like really complicated game system, really clunky, but I think it'll be really fun to look at and be like, put it through the lens. Cause I mean, I love Lord of the Rings stuff. So, but hey, what's up, Aaron? Good to see you. Caramel loves tickets. They're good for putting first looks on the list. Yes, they are. And I am trying to come up with some new stuff and some other stuff to do with tickets as well. And I don't know. Again, it's all part of the Discord needs to be completely reworked type thing, but we'll get there. Cynical Dragon likes my lit to be lit and my RPGs to be RPGs. Respect, Cynical Dragon. I guess I was in rare form, Wes. I mean, I was on Roll for Combat and I was also streaming in the middle of the night. I mean, I was talking about political conservatism and liberalism as it relates to the X card and indie RPGs, and there were some hotter than normal takes. I'll say that. Panic. It's in the first look queue channel. It's 100 silver just to put something on the list, but it goes at the bottom. But it's a couple of gold to put it at the top. All right, here we go. We're gonna get into it. But thank you everybody for the support. Really appreciate you guys, and let's get busy living or get busy dying. All right, DIERPG by Kieran Gillen and Stephanie Hans. Right off the bat, we have this kind of very graphic style of art with these weird flaming eyeballs, and I think it's kind of cool. It's kind of got like a sketchy look to it. Got some, graphical layout elements here. We got a lot of eyeballs everywhere, apparently. Okay, so it's writing by Kieran. It's art by Stephanie. There we go. The development was done by Grant Howitt. Additional adventure writing by Grant Howitt. Yada, 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 yada. Content warning. Murder, torture, food, hospitals, teenage drama, animal abuse, terrible GM practices, body horror, murder in self-defense, corporate exploitation, undead, cannibalism, plagiarism, zombies, obsession, parasocial relationships, workplace disagreements, body modification, loss of control, gaslighting, false memories, pleas for euthanasia, unreality, abusive managers, stress, and deadlines. Well, that is a lot of content warning, so be advised. Now, again, remember, too, I have to sort of remember in the back of my mind that how how this publishing house works and how some of their other books that they have made work. Now, obviously, this is a specific author, but, we'll get into it here. All right. The game. We've got some pages before the pages, but we have an introduction, of course. Okay, we start right off the rip with some microfiction, but I believe this was someone else's fiction existing, so I guess that's okay. Introduction, rules, paragons, which I'm going to assume are a class, something. We have 5 paragons classes: the Dictator, the Fool, the Emotion Knight, the Neo, and the Godbinder. We are off into the races. Master, rituals, running die, building die, a bestiary, a campaign, some scenarios and social groups, and some appendices. Okay. All right, so this is the note from the author. In 2016, they had an idea for a combat. A group of teenagers in the 1990s get dragged into a homebrew RPG. Okay. 2 years later, traumatized, they find their way out. Now, 20 years later, they're pulled. So this is a lit RPG. Okay. Cool. I have to give it up to, I guess, creative people, because it's just like, this is your idea. You had people. Your idea is, it's not like, oh, there's a bunch of people playing an RPG and they get dragged into like it would already, like, here's what I guess I'm getting at. It's like, it's always that level of extraness, right? Like, it's like, hey, imagine you have a group of people and they're playing an RPG and then they get pulled into their RPG. Like, that would be a fine idea, but he's like, no. It's like teenagers playing their RPG in the 90s. They get dragged into it. Then 20 years later, they're pulled back in, and now we get to compare their teenage fantasies with their adult realities. It'd be like a melancholic love song to a form I adored, asking, why do people long to spend their time in imaginary worlds? Anyways. But it wasn't just an idea for a comic. Oh, that's interesting. It was also an idea for an RPG. It had to be both. Okay, so the idea was to make a comic and an RPG at the same time. But it's fundamentally to answer the question, why do we play games? We were unsure which was the tail, which was the dog. Was it a comic with an RPG tie-in or an RPG with a tie-in comic? The dog ate its tail, became an Ouroboros. I released the beta edition along the collector's edition. It's been played, tweaked, and expanded. And then finally, my friends at Rowan, Rook, and Decker took it, distilled it, and created it. We took it to the Kickstarter. It went well, and here we have it. So there you go. Okay, so that's the fundamental premise. It's a comic. It's an RPG. It's kind of one and the same. It's a lit RPG. And yeah, let's get into it. So we got comics. Of course we do. We got a lot of microfiction here, comic books. Don't know what's going on here. A bunch of stuff. They're drinking in the hotel bar. They are getting together apparently to play RPGs. They're drinking. They're talking, explaining about role-playing games. Someone mentions the Tom Hanks movie. They open up a box with a bunch of dice in it. They grab the magical dice, and apparently they get teleported into the magical world. So it's like Jumanji, basically. All right. DIERPG with magic transporting dice. Probably sold to you by Dispel. Okay. Where a group of real-world, deeply flawed adults are transported to a fantasy world via a predatory, sinister role-playing game. Okay, that really does sound like Jumanji, though, right? There, they're transformed into paragons, each of whom is a warped take on the core fantasy role-playing class. In this world, they get to confront how their lives have diverted from their youthful fantasies to confront their darker sides and buried secrets. It has been jokingly called Goth Jumanji. It is a portal fantasy, which apparently is that the same thing as Ikisai or Lit RPG, or is it a completely different thing? But I mean, when I think portal fantasy, I think like Narnia, right? For adults, and is available from all good bookshops. Edenism says midlife crisis, the game. Now, this is a first look. Obviously, I have no idea what this game is. So what we're going to be trying to evaluate here is, what does this game do? What is this game about? Do the mechanics of the game support what the game is trying to accomplish? And how does the game reward you for playing it? What does this DIERPG let you do? In this game, so does anyone know why it's called DIERPG or why it's called Die? Like, at no point has that... You've got to admit that is a very weird name, right? Like, that doesn't... You're not just randomly calling it Die, but all in caps. Like, is there a reason for that? I don't know. Maybe. In this game, you make your own entirely... Interesting. Die is the name of the world that they are transported to. Okay. Okay. Interesting. Okay. In this game, you make your own entirely bespoke version of the Die story. You make your own social group of messed up real world humans. They're dragged into a world which echoes your own strengths and weaknesses, failures, losses, and successes. It is your fantasy world, personal and horrifically yours. Each of these visitors is transformed into unique versions of iconic paragons. Dictators break hearts with words in a blood fountaining out of people's mouths way. And we're off to the races. Let's find it. How many times does the word wet appear? Oh, only 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. I mean, I guess the index doesn't count, but not that many times. We're off to the races. This is a joke from Hart, by the way. Okay, so we've got Dictators who break hearts with words in a blood fountaining out of people's mouths way. Got it. So Pathfinder 2 bards. Check. Fools rush in with a smile on their face, knowing if it slips, they'll be torn apart. Emotion knights know if they feel their passion strongly enough, fear, hate, loathing, whatever they choose, they can decapitate gods. Godbinders haggle with and bully the divine to get their miracles done. Cheap. A Neo sneaks into a Prussian dragon's lair to steal enough fair gold to power up their techno weaponry enough to kill the bastard thing. Even masters shuffling reality know if their cheating gets caught, they'll have to suffer torment for breaking the rules. All right. Cool. Neat. In the end, a decision. Do the visitors go back to their real lives? And if they disagree, how will they come to an agreement? Can they settle things like grown-ups, or are swords and spells going to settle this? Because everyone knows that the dead don't vote. Will the game continue, or will the game end? You and your friends decide. What's a role-playing game? Watch. Google it and watch. Got it. All right. The best way to learn Die is, in order to run it, is to read this chapter, download and skim the Paragon sheets to discover the basic rules and what characters can do. Chapter 5, Rituals, describes in detail how the game works. Read Chapter 2, Rules, read the Paragon sheets, and you're ready to go. Okay, so that's what we're primarily going to focus on. If you fancy more detail, you can get into the individual classes in Paragons. There's a special master class, an antagonistic class that reserved for the GM. It did say Google it. Then we have chapters for GM advice, building your own personal campaign, presumably, a bestiary, advice for lengthening Die from a 2 to 3 session game, which I guess is the generic assumption is that it's a 2-3 session. And then also some short campaign prompts for one shots or quick starts. Okay, so it's all in one package. We've got GM advice, we've got information about building your own campaign. We have Edgelord, the RPG, the comic, the RPG, anime Edgelord RPG, the comic, the RPG. There we go. One shots, yes, that's what I think of one shots. I think they're one shots. A note on tone. In Die, you create a bunch of real-world people and then drop them into a fantasy world where the recesses of their inner lives are externalized and confronted or succumbed to. Old-school bullies as literal ogres, distant, disapproving parent figures as distant, disapproving archmage mentors, that lost love as the elf regent, promising you happiness as long as you abandon reality. This can be a serious game of personal trauma and loss, or it could be lighter, about real-world people dealing with the ludicrousness of fantasy world. It can be a game about adults finally coming to terms with their identity, or it could be about nerdy teenagers absolutely delighted to be able to throw fireballs. So there you go. Talk about range and flexibility. Do you want it to be literal, power fantasy, like, oh my god, I can't believe it, it's so cool, I'm actually a wizard now and I can blow people up with fireballs? Or do you want it to be a deeply traumatic personal exploration of your own self-loathing? That's quite the gamut. Terminology. Nice. You always love to see this. Die has a lot of terminology, borrowed from RPGs and some unique to the game. We've got characters, we've got dice, we've got encounters, we've got defense, sounds like armor class or DC. Each class is connected to a die. Gotcha. Makes sense. Die, the game you're holding, written in all capitals, separate from Die, the planet where all the games are set, or rather the planet with the pocket dimensions where the games are set. Looks like we've got a difficulty. When rolling to succeed in a task, a difficulty may be set. This is the number of successes rolled in a dice pool that are removed before determining success or failure. Interesting. So it's fundamentally the same thing, but you're removing successes. We've got Guard as a matter of ability to avoid damage. Looks like it's, we've got kind of similar to Mythic Bastionland in that way, or Electric Bastionland. A measure of a character's ability to withstand damage is our health. Okay, so we got some different stuff. Stats, we've got strength, dex, con, int, wisdom, charisma. So we've literally got D&D stats. Willpower is your ability to resist emotional manipulation. If you receive a hit when attacking, each success causes a hit. A hit is taken from guard. Once guard is empty, we take it from health. Any hit which reduces health is called a wound. Looks like we're going to be needing 4s or higher on any die. Okay, to get a success. And yeah, and then again, each class or paragon is apparently associated with one of the 6 classic RPG dice, which is kind of a cool concept. It reminds me of, what game does that remind me of? Is it Mazes? Is Mazes like that? Alrighty. So that's sounds like the basic. Spoiler for the die comic and for players. Well, wait, isn't this like literally the first page of the game? Adjacent to our world is another world, a sentient world, an imagination parasite. Man, I don't know how else to describe it except for like, it almost sounds like AI. I know it's not AI, but it's this like word vomit way of some of these RPGs write, you know? Like, it's just like the most random goobly gook ever, you know? A world of worlds, an imagination parasite, an amoral god at the end of time. It just sounds like gibberish. Anyways, so apparently the world is called Die, and it's literally a big floating D20. It is, each side is a triangular plane. Each side has a master. Each a warped mirror of an element which was consumed by role-playing games. From eternal Prussia to Little England to the Confederation of Angria, wars are waged and peaces endured. They are watched by the fair, multi-dimensional judges who could be thought of as elves, as designed by William Gibson. That's the person who wrote Neuromancer, by the way, basically invented cyberpunk. Emerging from the ground are the fallen, lurching machine monsters like orcs auditioning to play a part in Tetsuo the Iron Man. Okay. Also, the fallen have a secret. All right. Inside are eggs. Each egg is another world. There's an egg for every single game of Die that will ever be played. All games of Die happen inside of these eggs. Yours will too. Whenever you die, you feed the egg, and you could be resurrected inside of the dead. Every fallen that you meet is actually someone who died in a game of Die. Right? This is like hyper meta. It's not even meta. It's like hyper meta, right? This is why Die leads us to these fantasy worlds. It does it to feed, right? So, you know, the idea, right? Again, the idea is that like role-playing games are the creation of this extra dimensional entity that invites you to play in the fantasy world, and that by creating the fantasy world and creating a character, and then when that character dies in the fantasy world, it feeds on you and your energy, right? So it's like role-playing games were created as like an extra dimensional parasite to feed on our imaginations. That's, you know, it's like it's basically saying like everything. This isn't just, right, this is an RPG, but like all RPGs, the RPGs that you're playing right now, right, is part of this game. People are weird. Maybe, you know what it is? Maybe I didn't, you know, I never got into drugs. I never got into hallucinogens. you know, I never did mushrooms or MDMA, Molly, acid, and maybe you just need to, apparently. maybe that's the key takeaway, you know. Visitors don't know this. Why would they? So anyways, you get dragged into the game by the master. The soon-to-be master, that's the GM, believes that the world will fulfill the fantasies that they never achieved in reality. A copy of the game fell into their hands. One way or another, they then gathered the group together, likely not even dreaming it would do anything other than pass an evening. The rules told them the people the game requires or the selection criteria demanded, perhaps people you love, perhaps people you hate. It's the people who die thinks would be the most interesting to play together. They gather, they play. The game is a game, and all games are a ritual, which of course is why their rules chapter isn't called rules, it's called ritual, because the idea is that like role-playing games aren't just a game, they're a ritual, right? It's a metaphorical thing that represents us doing more than we are doing. We're not just playing a game, right? We're communing with each other in a form of ritualistic elements. Anyways, so take that or leave that as you will. Okay. Avison says it's giving the kind of person that sells crystals that heal you energy. So there we go. We got this person slashing through another person, and there's also a giant spectral bear thing, which is cool. All right, well, there you go. So that answers the question, right? What is this game about? Hopefully you understand. Art is cool. I like the art. In Die, players play characters on their version of Earth, known as personas. Eventually, so basically, you are playing as people who are playing an RPG, right? So you make a persona who is playing, and then your persona who's playing an RPG, and then your persona gets sucked into this extra dimensional world, and you become a paragon. So your game will go both from Earth to Die, from Die to Earth, right? So you have to go back and forth. So you're playing an RPG about playing RPGs that get sucked into a world which is predicated as being about RPGs, right? It makes sense. When the game, I'm playing a dude, pretending to be a dude, pretending to be another dude. Exactly. Well, okay, so let's ignore the Robin Williams Jumanji, right? Jumanji. Let's go with the new Jumanji, the one with the rock, okay? And, like, what do you think Jumanji even is, lady? Because Jumanji is you getting sucked into Jumanji. No, what it would be like is if Jumanji was a movie about people who play a board game about people who get sucked into Jumanji. Does that make sense? Right? You're not playing people that get sucked in Jumanji. You're playing people who are playing a game about people who get sucked into Jumanji. Okay. Anyways, when the game is on Earth, there aren't any rules. Things are handled with role-playing and open conversation. However, when the game enters the fantasy world, the following rules are used to determine what happens when any character tries to do something. Yes, double Inception Jumanji. It's exactly right, K2. 15 says, it makes sense, but my brain doesn't like it. Okay. A character is anyone inside the fantasy world. All characters have 6 main stats: strength, dex, con, wisdom, int, charisma. Right. The half of our game doesn't have rules, and the other half doesn't have role playing. That is what I'm reading that to be, right? Stats are represented by a number between 0 and 4. An average person score is 2. 3 is the most competent people on Earth. 4 would be significantly better than anyone on Earth. And a 5 is beyond human. Let's see. So, Care Lumpago. I want to play a sweaty, fat, bearded, and balding 43-year-old man. That would be your persona. That has an anime girl character. That would be your Paragon, right? That great question, Nate. I don't know. I think the idea is that you are supposed to be the persona who is being sucked into the world and then playing as the Paragon. And fundamentally, it is like about the tension of like, do you still like that? And or does the fantasy world heal you or solve you? Right? Like, according to everybody, you didn't need to read the comic. And according to the game, the comic and the game are one and the same, and they're in Ouroboros, and they ate each other. Like, yeah. Anyways, characters have 4 defensive stats used to determine a character's survival in hostile situations. They are derived from your main stats and are modified by your equipment. Okay, cool. Guard is your measure of an ability to avoid damage. By the way, I mean, regardless of where this game goes, I love having 2 different hit point pools. We talked about this several times over the last couple of months, last year. We saw it in that, we talked about that one mech game that we saw that had the 3 different levels of hit points. Obviously, Mythic Bastionland does this with its literally called Guard stat. Even in certain aspects of like Pathfinder 2 kind of does this, right? With its stamina rule variant. But I love the idea of separating this in having this idea. So you have Guard, which represents your ability to avoid damage. And then you have Health, which is your ability to withstand damage. So as long as you're being hit and you're only losing Guard, you aren't being hit, which, kind of cooks people's brains a little bit, but I think it's actually a really cool way to phrase it in a really cool way. And it also makes it a great way to make sense of it. Presumably Guard is something that you can get back quickly. It's a cool way to have that. Basically, it's a cool way to have like that Halo shield mechanic, right? Willpower is our ability to resist emotional damage. And then defense is a measure of how difficult it is to hit a character. It is 0, unless stated otherwise. When a character does something, if there's no significant chance of not happening, it happens. If the action is absolutely impossible, it doesn't happen. If a skilled individual brings those skills to bear in a situation with little immediate pressure and little interest in failure, it happens. If the action is a Paragon's ability which follows its own set of rules, follow the rules on your sheet. And if none of these apply, you turn to the core mechanic. Mechanic. Collect a number of dice equal to the most relevant stat. Do you have any advantages? Add 1 die for each. Any disadvantages? Remove 1 die for each. Roll. Every die showing a 4 or higher is a success. If the GM has set a difficulty for the task, remove that many successes from your pool. If any successes remain, you have succeeded. If any of the dice remaining are a 6 or higher, you can use them to activate a special ability. So there you go. So it's a dice pool system. So the GM, most tasks are difficulty 0. If it would stretch the ability of a human, it's 1, and if it's beyond human, it would be 2. You gather D6s equal to your stat. So if your dex is 2, you would get 2 dice. Some class abilities also allow players to add their class dice to the pool as well. Yeah, I'm getting a lot of Mythic Bastionland vibes here, Task Agent. Advantages could be tactical positioning, good equipment, and apt witticism, right? And again, I like when you have these very generic frameworks that just say, hey, add a die, you know. Now, granted, I kind of liked, I don't even remember what game we just looked at. Help me out. Temeraire. Temeraire had a very similar system, but it was just like you either got an advantage or you didn't. And instead of like trying to like, I don't know, weasel your way into getting more and more advantage dice, like I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I'm just saying like I kind of liked Temeraire's better, where it was just like, do you have some sort of advantage, a bunch of advantages, but just gain an advantage die. Anyways, you subtract a die from disadvantages, then you roll. Anything 4 or higher you keep. You then apply the difficulty, potentially removing 0, 1, or 2 successes, and then you finally determine the results. If you have any successes left in your pool, it was successful. If any of the remaining dice show a 6 or higher, each one that shows a 6 or higher can activate an additional effect called a special, if you have one available to use. All right. They're usually granted by your class and your weapon choices. So, for example, it might say special, gain 1 guard. Some specials require 2, 3, or even 4 rolls of 6 or higher. These are called double, triple, or quad specials. Some specials are mandatory, and that means if you roll enough 6 or more dice to activate the mandatory special, you must pick it first. Real world flashback rule. A real world flashback is when a player recalls an event from the real world. Note that doesn't necessarily mean our real world, right? It means the real world from the perspective of your characters who are playing the game, who got sucked into the game that is a game. Flashbacks are part of the fiction and reveal something new about the persona, not the Paragon, the persona. That's the fake real world. Correct, Madison. Each player can use a flashback once per session to get an advantage on any task. Guard resets at the start of every combat. Makes sense? Health decreases. They can't go below 0. If health ever reaches 0, you pass out. If you are not healed or stabilized by the end of the combat, you die. If you would ever have negative health, you die. Death for a persona is not the end of the game. There are more rules for this 109 pages from now. Okay, when combat begins. Wouldn't be an RPG without combat. Reset guard for all characters equal to their dex score. Keep in mind your dex is going to be like 1, 2, 3. So like, you know, your guard is only going to be 2 or 3 points. Characters begin taking turns, going from the highest to the lowest dexterity. If it's a tie, alternate. Once characters have all taken a turn, start over. Combat is over when everyone agrees it's over. If someone is still swinging and wants to be swinging, it is not over. We've got ranges: melee, close, medium, and far. Who is the player who is most immediately linked to the narrative situation? They act now. While the GM has final call, the GM may seek the player's input on this. Who is the GM-controlled character who is most immediately linked to the narrative situation? They act now. If there are no more players or GM-controlled characters in the group, just skip back to the other side. Repeat steps 1 through 2 until there are no more characters who share the same dexterity, then progress to the next group. Seems like an awfully crazy way to have that many rules just to break ties, but I guess when everybody has dexes of 1s, 2s, and 3s, I guess you need something. Anyways, during your turn, you can move and make an action. You can move before, after, or during, and we have broad range bands. You can use your move to change from one range band to the next, from melee to close to medium to far. Also, if you're at far, you have to use 2 moves to go to medium range. If a player wants to go further than their simple free move, they can choose to spend their action as a second move. So to move from far into medium would take both your move and your action. This is anything that you would do in combat, like attack. You assemble a you determine the difficulty, which is equal to the target's defense, which again the game said is usually 0. Remember, difficulty is going to be removed from our dice pool after we roll it. We assemble a dice pool. Melee uses strength, range uses dex, spellcasting uses int, wisdom, and sometimes charisma. 4s and higher are successes. If you roll 0 successes when attacking someone, and someone could possibly attack you back, that the attacking character suffers a hit. If a character has no successes after difficulty removing them, the next attack on that target gains an advantage, due to them having to concentrate on fending off that attack. Okay. So you can be hit on when you make attacks, apparently. If a target has any guard, each hit that you've rolled removes 1 guard. If the target has 0 guard, it instead removes 1 health. If an attack affects all individuals in an area, roll a... Now that sounds like Tunnels of Trolls. If an attack affects all individuals in an area, roll a single dice pool and apply the number of successes rolled to each target individually. Each individual subtracts their own defense from the total to discover the number of hits that they could suffer. Okay. For a spell attack, you're using the dice pool to both determine if you successfully cast the spell as well as the number of successes to apply. Well, with Dex and Con, you would have Guard of 4 and Health of 4. Now, George says, I don't want to sound mean, but this is the most RPG I've seen. It insists upon itself. George, I cannot speak to its menace yet. It is a first look. I don't make reviews, but I will say it does insist upon itself. Much like The Godfather. Which I actually think is a good movie. But it does insist upon itself. It wants you to keep being like, oh, this is so good. Characters can merge their attacks to do a single team attack. The team attack dice pool is equal to the highest stat in the group, and you get 1 die of advantage for every extra individual. You can make non-lethal attacks. You can overflow damage. If you successfully subdue a target, any extra successes can be moved onto another viable target. And if you want to attack multiple opponents, you add a disadvantage die to the roll, and then you can freely distribute your successes between multiple targets. Extra mechanics. If you want some additional approaches to interpreting your dice pool, consider these options, especially if they're for the style of your group. So these are optionals, but there's a critical fail rule. If you roll no successes and get a 1. If you have more than 1 success remaining, you could do something particularly awesome or flamboyant or spectacular looking. Here we have rules for failure at a cost. If you rolled successes, but they got removed because of the difficulty rating, the GM can rule it to be a success with a cost, a partial success, or a success with a complication. This is the way to fail forward. right? And we know these from our PBTA. Success with a cost is the same thing as normal, but it costs you an additional thing. Partial success means that it doesn't cost you anything, but you kind of made some progress, but you didn't fully complete it. And then a complication lets the player achieve the goal, but it creates a new problem or a twist or a new situation that you have to deal with. You know, so example, the Neo, is trying to pick a lock. They roll a success, but the difficulty of the task is 1, thus leaving 0 successes. Now, the GM could choose to say, well, you succeed with a cost. You get the lock open, but it breaks your lock pick, and you won't be able to pick locks for the rest of the adventure. Or you made some progress. If you try again, the difficulty of the task will be reduced by 0 or by 1 to 0. And lastly, a complication. The door opens, but you make a noise. A guard hears, and is coming to investigate. So, but this is not the core rule. This is an optional rule, technically. There's also an optional rule to set thresholds of success, thus basically giving you tiered successes. You can also specify effects for each success in a die pool or for a mechanical or narrative reward. Obviously, in combat, we know that each success is a hit that does damage. But for example, maybe each success lets you ask 1 question, you know, or each success lets you uncover 1 clue, you know, that kind of thing. This approach is very much informed by both clocks from games like Blades in the Dark and the Resistance system by Grant Howitt and Christopher Taylor. Makes sense. There's a lot of white space on these pages, huh? I mean, I guess they use this column here, but and then there's also rules for abstracting your successes, certain situational specials, not just ones from your character sheet, but like the GM might say, hey, in this encounter, you can use your specials, which is when you roll a 6 or higher to do something special. And of course, you can mash any or all these techniques together to create your own particularly weird, unique game. For combining techniques, there's a lot of this stuff in the campaign. This is very much inspired by systems and powered by the Apocalypse, first seen by Apocalypse World by D. Vincent Baker and McGay Baker. All right, so we've got technically five classes. We've got artistic diplomats who manipulate emotions with horrific magical words, swashbucklers who rely on supernatural luck, emotion knights who feed on a sacred emotion, neos are techno-mage rogues, and godbinders are clerics who make deals with their gods. And then there's one, the reality-controlling magician, the master, which is for the GM. Alrighty. Now, I could be wrong here, and I'm saying this with as open of a heart and as clear of a mind as I can. I still don't get it. I mean, maybe we'll get into something here when we get into the thing. I just read the core ability. It sounds like a pretty generic dice pool system, which is whatever, fine. Definitely has shades of 17 other indie games that we've seen. But I'm still not quite sure what's going on here. But again, we're pretty early in the book, so we're only on page 33. I mean, it says page 19, but it's page 33 of the PDF because it's earlier. All right, so a class, right? I feel it should have probably said you need to be a fan. Did you read the comic book? If you didn't read the comic book, like it was kind of a similar vibe I got when we read Cosmere, right? Where it was like talking about all this, stuff. And it's like, after you get a spren, then you can modify your spren variants to bridge. And I was like, guys, this means nothing to me. This is gobbledygook, you know? No, there's no bridges. So a paragon, that's like a class, is defined by the name, its specific die size, a brief piece of text which describes their core nature, aka microfiction. I'm just kidding. Reasons why you would want to play this paragon. You're defining your starting stats and what stats are important to you, your equipment, your suggested looks. So it sounds like a playbook, basically. And then it also contains your advancement map. In classic convention in RPGs, it is a classic convention in RPGs that characters get more powerful the longer they play. Die is written to work entirely without any character advancement. For a one-off scenario, so it's interestingly too that the game seems to be primarily predicated around playing a one-shot or maybe a two-shot, maybe a three-shot. Like, in fact, they talk about an optional series of rules. There's a whole optional chapter about actually turning it into a long campaign. That is not the core assumption. Die, as presented in Chapter 5, Rituals, which again is nothing. It's just their made-up term because they think that, you know, playing the game is a ritual, so they call it Rituals. But anyways, it runs in 2 to 4 sessions, and is not suited for the full Die the campaign advancement. So there you go. When your players have achieved a major goal, the Paragon's dice burst into life and they gain new abilities. As Paragons overcome their struggles, their dice are attuning themselves to their owners and vice versa. That literally made no sense to me. Is that a comic book thing? Anyways, this is a leveling up moment. And so basically they're just saying this is a game that you're not really supposed to advance, but if you want to advance, here's some things that you can do. Unless you're playing more than 2 to 4 sessions, one advancement will likely satisfy players' urge to get another toy. Characters start at level 1 and max out at level 20. In reality, even in a long campaign, you'll probably not hit level 20. They are about choices rather than Pokemon-esque collect them all. The abilities you don't pick are as important as the one that you do. The characters in Die the comic are around levels 10 to 14. That's about as long as any Die campaign should last. That raises a fundamental question. When do you advance? The world has 20 regions. Everyone advances and level ups once they master a region. Mastering a region can mean several things, but usually it means that you've completed a major adventure in that region. That's kind of cool. Right? Because the world has 20 sides, because it's a 20-sided die. Each side is like its own kind of like parallel dimensional plane. And basically, once you master that plane, you level up. That's kind of cool. What if you play in a world without 20 regions? Okay, we don't care. So here is an example of a advancement map, which, by the way, I believe this is an isodecahedron unfolded. So I think if you folded this up, it would become a D20. That's kind of cool. And this is kind of, it kind of reminds me of Blades in the Dark, right? With your turf expansion of your crew. Very meta, very cool. Neat. K-Tube says mastering a region as a level up is the best part so far. I actually am inclined to agree with that. I'm not trying to be a shitty troll. I'm just saying, like, that's literally the thing that, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. That's kind of neat. At level 3, 6, 9, 12, you get to add a point to any stat up to a max of 4. At level 10, you get to make an interesting decision. I don't know what that means. Everyone starts with the bottommost triangle filled. Every time you advance, pick a region that shares a side with an already filled-in region. Claim that reward and then fill in that region. Both of these are valid paths for a level 8 character. If you're running a short campaign or pushing towards a big climax, you can use accelerated advancement. Rather than options that have to touch sides, instead they could touch tips. This will allow you to quickly move through the path. So, kind of an interesting way to use your, right? Like normally you have to get new gift, and then an upgrade, and then a new gift before you can get another upgrade. But like if we were playing accelerated, you could go new gift, upgrade, upgrade, upgrade. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know if the system seems totally, yeah, I mean, I would say fine. Like, you know, it doesn't, I don't think it's anything particularly revolutionary or shocking or different. I mean, it's, you know, D6 dice pool, you need 4s or higher, you know, 6s do something kind of extra. I mean, again, it's kind of a pretty generic system. And we literally just looked at Temeraire the other day, which literally does basically the same thing. Now, Temeraire is obviously newer than this, but I'm just saying, like, it's, I don't think even at the time when this came up, it was, you know, okay. Well, we've got a couple of classes now. As this is a first look, we never go through all the classes. So we have Dictator, Fool, Emotion Knight, Neo, and Godbinder. So as I am wont to do, I'm going to create a poll for you guys to vote. Which class we will take a look at. Unfortunately, I cannot find my poll. There it is. Which Paragon? So we have the Dictator, the Fool, the Dictator, Emotion Knight. Okay. All right, folks, get your votes in. I'm gonna use the restroom real quick. Alrighty. Oh, we've got a triple tie. Uh-oh. Somebody's got to break the tie. Whoever you are, you have power. Oh, you have power overwhelming. All right. Boothby, who hates first looks. It's a good thing Boothby's not here for this, by the way. Break them. All right. Emotion Knight it is. Oh, you. What class we're going to look at. To be clear, Boothby, just to catch you up really quickly, this is a game about how you play people who are playing a game, which is a game in which you go into the game that is a world that is predicated as being a game, and then you play inside that game to see if you still want to keep playing that game or if you want to go back to the real world where you've now solved your emotional problems. Okay. Emotion Night. Oh, look, it's the cool person that we've seen all over the art. So already 10 out of 10. So I'm assuming that the Emotion Night is supposed to be like the version of the Paladin. Well, okay, and I wasn't trying to be too flippant with that description, level 2. I think that's a fair approximation of what the game is about. Based on, you know, my good faith reading of the game. But yeah, I'm assuming this is supposed to be a Paladin. All right. Well, I love the art, so we'll just stop there, okay? I'm assuming... Oh, that's interesting. You think the Fool is the bard. I thought the Dictator was the bard. Oh, shit. You're right, John. Holy crap. John is 100% correct. Look at that. There's this outline of the art that is that unfolded isodecahedron. Okay. These orders of knights are the world's greatest warriors, each devoted to one of the 8 sacred emotions. Guess what? I'm going to guess that they're a D8. Whether it be joy, hate, or fear, if they feel it, they can use it to fuel the power of their sentient arcane weapons. When consumed by their sacred sensation, they're incomparable warriors, capable of miraculous feats. Nothing can stand against their blades. Not armies, not mountains, not even ideas. They can defeat everything, except the passion which drives them. Play an Emotion Knight if you want to be the most powerful fighter in the land, capable of fighting armies single-handedly. Develop a bond with a signature weapon born of your own psyche. Process your tumultuous emotions by using them as incendiary fuel for your powers. All right, all of your stats start at 2, and then you have 2 points to bump any stats that you wish. You want to have a high strength and a high con. Equipment, all you really need is your arcane weapon. However, you also have a striking resilience to harm. Why? Do you have an uncanny danger sense? Do you have scarred flesh, which is resistant to pain? Do you have the finest armor? And do you keep it in good condition? Or something else? Okay. Why are we awesome? Danger sense, scarred skin, awesome armor, something else. All right. Pull us up. Edward coming in.
Edward tipped $5. Oh man. I assumed it would be a harder sell, but it's gonna cost me a good amount to get this first look extended. Embarrassed smiley face emoji.
Oh, Edward. You better believe it, buddy. Whoa, what's with the 4s? Dang. I mean, isn't that kind of the same thing as having a danger sense, though? Really, Avacyn, come on. All right, well, everyone's like, screw your choices. I want something else. Okay, your look. Okay, now see, K-Tube, you are ready to play DIERPG. By the way, total tangent. I think 4 was just the protest bet. So total tangent. There's a new Magic the Gathering set that comes out tomorrow, and it's a follow-up to a Magic set that came out like 5-6 years ago, called Strixhaven. And a lot of people know Strixhaven now because they made it into a D&D thing. But Strixhaven is kind of basically Hogwarts, right? Where you have there's 5 magic it's a magic college, and there's 5 schools, 5 houses, and the students belong to the different houses. It's very Harry Potter Hogwarts-esque. Anyways, the new set comes out tomorrow called Secrets of Strixhaven. It's the follow-up set, and yeah, I'm gonna see what my crew is up to. But on Fridays we usually play RPGs. We play Fabula Ultima, and I know last week Smith couldn't make it, but I'm potentially, depending on what happens, I might see what everybody's doing, and I might go play in the pre-release, because it's been a long time since I played pre-release. But I really like Strixhaven. Anyways, the new Lorehold Dragon is amazing, right? Makes everything miracles. Awesome. Looks incredible. Anyways, as some people know, I love the Monster Hearts game, and I've been wanting for a while to sort of like make a variant of the Monster Hearts game that combines elements from like Brindlewood Bay and like Avatar. But then I was thinking about creating, I was like, when Strixhaven, I was reading through the spoiler today, and there was a card. It's like a blue, I think it's just like a blue 6-drop, and it's called like Homesick. And it's like a blue spell that, like, I don't know, like stuns your character. It taps a creature, puts like stun counters on it or something. I don't remember exactly what it did. But seeing the art and seeing the name Homesick made me suddenly be like, I really wanted to create, and because it's Strixhaven, I really wanted to create a variant of Monster Hearts called like Magic Hearts, and basically take Monster Hearts, but instead instead of like sexy vampires, tone down some of the sexuality and increase, some of the elements of the game, and basically make like a Monster Hearts version, but set at a magical school, but then still bring in the carved by Brindlewood element from Brindlewood Bay, right? Because like, the Harry Potter things are ultimately usually about like a mystery and the kids selling. No, tone down the sexy wizard. That's my point. Tone down the sexy wizard. Now it would still be like teenage wizards, right? So we're talking more like Goblet of Fire era, right? Order of Phoenix era, right? Where, Harry and people are getting crushes and all this other stuff. But also bring in the sort of like school antics and create like an RPG where like you both have to solve the mystery. Now, Kids on Broomsticks exists, but I don't feel like they did enough with it, because I don't think that they leaned enough into the, what I'll call the hormonal aspects of it. Kids on Broomsticks is good, sort of. But I want to have more of like the relationship element there. Anyways, now everyone's talking about Secrets of Strixhaven. Anyways, I'll see what my crew is up to. Now, it's not usually, I'm not going to cancel my RPG to go play Magic anymore. That's not what I do anymore. There were a couple years there where I was missing a lot of RPG sessions because I was like going to tournaments all the time. But I do love Strixhaven. I think it's a really cool set. The original set is one of my favorites. I love the theme. I think it's amazing. I obviously, J.K. Rowling is a controversial figure to say the least, but I mean, I loved Harry Potter. I still do in some cases. In fact, in the Magic community, my nickname is Gryffindor. So I love Strixhaven, but the new set just looks so cool. The mechanics look great. I love the, I don't know what the actual term is, but the prepared mechanic where you have these cards tacked onto your cards. It's just amazing. Yeah, it just seems so cool. Avison, by the way, saying what homesickness. Target player draws 2 cards, tap up to 2 target creatures, put stop. Okay, so I forgot about the drawing cards, but there you go. Yeah, angsty teen on brooms. That's kind of what we want more there. Yes, that's what I want. And so I want it to be basically teen wizards, okay? And I want you to basically have 3 pillars of play, okay? 3 pillars of play. Not social, combat, and exploration, but the 3 pillars of play would be like this sort of the mystery, right? Like there's some sort of mystery going on at the school that you're get caught up in and you're trying to solve. Your classwork and, trying to pass your classes and do well at school. And then the third element, the third tier would be relationships. So like those would be the 3 tiers of the game. It would be like the solving the mystery, dealing with school, and dealing with relationships. Those would be the three pillars of play of my game. Anyways, so we start with defense 1, which we know is a big deal in this game. Now it's interesting. Boothby goes, "Oh, you have my interest," and then Wes says, "This sounds like torture to me." I've never played Persona except for my one buddy who lived with me for a while and used to play it, and I would just mock him by shouting out Persona. But there are elements to the Persona game which I think are pretty cool in that way. Okay. As an emotion knight, your powers are driven by a specific and sacred emotion. Choose from the emotion wheel that best fits your emotion. Write that into the blank space at the top of your character sheet to denote what type of knight you'll be. All 3 of the words on your spoke are aspects of your sacred emotion. You will feed on all of them. This is the one that you related to your persona's conflict, or the one that you think is the most interesting to explore. If you're unsure, pick rage. Okay, so sure enough, we have 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have rage, vigilance, ecstasy, admiration, terror, amazement, grief, and loathing. So this is our emotion wheel. You know what? Fuck it. Fuck it, we ball. What sacred emotion are you choosing? Now, by the way, it could be that I am just colorblind, so you guys can help me out here. But is admiration and terror basically the same color of green? I am red-green colorblind, but to my eyes, those 2 colors are extremely similar. Terror looks a little bit darker, maybe, All right. At least I'm not too crazy. I mean, I can tell them apart, but they are very close to my eyes. I love it. They're like, choose rage. It's easy. And then everyone's like, no. A lot of grief. Geesh, what are you guys dealing with? All right. We also have an arcane weapon. Our abilities are channeled through our arcane weapon. It could be a sharp weapon, a heavy weapon, an esoteric weapon, or something else. Our trait, which we choose, it's either brutal, fast, or elegant. If it's brutal and we roll one of our 6s, if it hits, if this hit wounds, it does 2 points of damage instead. Note, that means it has to get through the guard first. Fast easily gets through guard. Brutal easily gets through wounds. Elegant uses dexterity instead of strength. So it's basically finesse. By the way, all arcane weapons are sentient and they communicate with their owner both audibly and with short range. No, because remember, in order for a hit to wound, it has to deal wounds, which means it can't take away guard. So basically, it does 1 for 1 while you're eating through their guard. And then when you get through the guard, it then does 2 points of damage, basically. The weapon's personality is aggressively determined in pursuit of your sacred emotion, a critical voice, doubting your worthiness, the adorable opposite of what you'd expect from such a weapon, or something else. By the way, we've got a lot of Slanesh folks in chat. We've got 5 votes for ecstasy, but the winners, the depressed people have it, or not the depressed, I guess the sad boys have it. Grief. Grief is our sacred emotion. Yeah, right. The 6 is what you do for the special. I was saying that's a special, meaning that you get that when you do the 6. Sad boy paladin. Now listen, as an emo fan, okay, listen, I appreciate it. Okay, listen, I appreciate it. You know what? I'm having fun with this because you guys are fun people. Aggressively determined, critical voice, adorable opposite. All right, what personality are you giving your arcane weapon? So obviously, like, you know, like the classic would be like, okay, I have a brutal great axe, you know, and my personality of my brutal great axe is called like, you know, it's called like Princess Rainbow Sunshine. And it's like, hey, how's it going, everybody? I'm really excited to be here. Right? I got to turn on my kawaii voice changer. Man, you grief, critical voice. Guys, maybe some of you need to play this game, okay? Maybe you guys need to work some stuff out. Emotional damage. Pumpkin hates the adorable opposite trope. I'm assuming that's like a very common trope in anime, especially. I'm assuming. I feel like I see that trope a lot, you know, like the little girl tee-hee, who can like punch, you know, but she's the super strong one, right? You know, like. All right. Your emotion knight keeps track of your sacred emotion on the emotional intensity scale. Use your emotion knight's dice as a counter, track it. Depending on how intensely your character is feeling the emotion in the fiction, you will move your counter up or down the scale. Discuss with your GM if you feel it would have changed, and your GM may also prompt you to change it. So level 0, nothing. At level 1, you're feeling strong feelings. You are emotionally engaged. Add a D8 to all of your attacks. Your stances are active. Can use venting abilities. Okay. I don't think I know what any of those words mean. All right, let's see what Cal says.
Tip $2. The weapon is a vending machine and it is used as a backpack to counterbalance the character with super strength. If you know, you know.
I do not know, so I appreciate the $2 tip to say your insider joke, probably anime reference. I'm going to assume it's some sort of anime reference. That's what I'm going to assume. Yeah, okay, there we go. When I don't know something at all, I assume it's usually just anime. Now, more importantly, it means that we get to add a D8 to our dice pools when we attack. And that's pretty good, right? An extra die is great. Number one. Number 2, we need 4s or higher. So we obviously do very well with that. And we need 6s or higher to trigger specials. So adding a D8 is really good. Now, what are stances? We don't know. Can we use venting abilities? We don't know what those are. But we can't do it when we're at 0, but we can do it when we're at 1. At level 2, with creative violence, we could defeat a mob, a blockade, a village, or strength. At level 3, with creative violence, we could defeat an army, a mountain range, an entire town, or a weakness. At level 4, when we are completely lost in our emotion, with our creative violence, we could defeat an entire city, despair, or someone you truly love. With level 5 emotions, we could defeat an entire country or a religion. And at level 6, with inhuman levels of emotion, we could defeat a god, hope, or yourself? Listen, nothing is stronger than the power of an ideal, okay? Because you can defeat a man. That is my favorite. That is my favorite. That's my favorite chat for the entire stream.
I am strong. Strong. Strong.
Oh. Oh. It's like the last thing, by the way, you know. You could defeat a god. Hope yourself. Wow. So anyways, level 1 is feeling strong. Feeling level 3 is the strongest most people have ever felt any emotion in their whole life. You will be unable to act on anything but that emotion if it equals or exceeds your willpower. Most humans pass out at level 4. Level 6 and higher are literally supernatural emotions, right? You're going Super Saiyan grief. In terms of mechanical effects, each level of effect will give a disadvantage on doing something against the emotion. If the effect could help a task, you gain a single advantage. It is possible that the GM will suggest compulsions of things that you need or want to do. These can be resisted with a wisdom roll. The difficulty is the level of the emotion that you are feeling, halved and rounded down. Creative violence, which is our core shtick. Remember, the game said the core rules are, if it's completely easy, you do it automatically. If it's completely impossible, you don't do it. If it's challenging, but someone like you with your skill set should still be able to do it, then you do it immediately. If you have a special rule on your character sheet or character class, you use those rules. And if none of those things apply, that's when we use the other thing. All right, creative violence. Emotion knights are the greatest warriors in the land, capable of truly legendary and even mystical feats. Knights can defeat an army, but others have been known to cut fear itself from the heart of their friends. If an emotion knight has 2 levels of emotion, they can expend it to achieve such a feat. So you have to cash in your emotions. To begin with, the highest level you can get is 3. You can defeat anything which fits one of the nouns on your current emotion scale or below. For example, if you're level 3 emotion, you could defeat an army. Interpret defeat poetically. To use creative violence, pick up your D8 from your emotional scale and roll it. If it's equal to or less than your emotional level, you achieve your goal, but you and or someone close to you suffers wounds equal to the results. If it's higher than your emotional level, you succeed outright. Either way, it resets to 0. So, if we are at emotion level 3 and we want to defeat an army, we roll a d8, and if we roll 3 or less, we achieve our result. If we roll 4 or more, we achieve our result. So in other words, we cannot fail to defeat an entire army. So that should really set the tone for this game and what we're doing here, right? Again, because this game is really about people playing a game to come to grips with their own shortcomings and failures in life. It's obviously not some sort of, we're not trying to defeat the severe encounter, right? This is not Pathfinder 2. This is not D&D 5th edition. This isn't even like Dungeon World, When you are feeling your sacred emotion, your arcane weapon's powers flicker into life. Whenever you're above 0, you can add your class die, the D8, to any attack that you make. You also activate your stance. Stances are passive abilities born from your abilities as a knight. Some are used in combat. Others are social. There's also emotional stances, which are limited to certain types of emotion knights. Choose one stance. If you have more than one stance, you can change them with an action in combat or at will when you're not in combat. Lastly, venting. Emotion Knights are able to vent a little of their power to fuel a specific powerful ability. Pick one venting ability. If you are emotionally engaged, you can vent. If you vent, you reduce your emotion by 1, and it triggers your vent ability. Now, remember, I believe we agreed that we were all going to be sad boy knights. So this, but, you know, wearing, you know, black eyeliner and black nail polish. So here are some venting abilities that we could choose. Decapitation Strike. Target and attack a single individual and ignore their guard. Combat Frenzy. Apply the results of this attack roll to all enemies within melee range. Duel. Choose a single individual. They cannot attack anyone else until you say so. Personal attacks. Discover how your sacred emotion could be used to hurt the target. Personal knowledge. Gain knowledge of who or what a target feels your emotion most strongly towards. Distance Strike. You can attack anything at any distance as long as you know exactly where they are. Emotional Reserve. If you suffer a wound in combat, you may vent rather than suffer that wound. That seems strong. Hard Case. Vent to make anyone human size think that if you fought, you would win. And then for stances, we could get things like Bodyguard. We can take hits for somebody else. Ranged Attack lets us attack with our arcane weapon out to medium range. Riposte. If an opponent's attack fails to hit us, we can make an immediate attack backs to them. Parry. Everyone attacking us suffers a disadvantage die, etc., etc. There's also social stances. Intimidating Gaze. You can be a scary fucker. You radiate murderous contempt. If there's a question of who's the most murderous person in the room, the answer is you. The common folk of the kingdom automatically think you're one of them. What does common folk mean? You tell us. If someone is looking for a leader, they will look to you. In any room, you instantly attract everyone's attention. All of your jokes land with at least one person present in the current situation. And here are some special stances that are tied to special emotions. So, for example, grief, sadness, pensiveness. We could choose the catharsis stance. When we are emotion draining, we also heal 1 wound from your target for every level of emotion that we drain. Pity me. People pity you as if they would a whimpering puppy. Another cool piece of art. So when you do get advances, if you do get advances, you advance up this map. So you can see that the first thing that we get normally is emotion draining. But then we can pick up new stances, either combat stances or social stances or any stance. We can also pick up new venting abilities. We could also pick up, we can have 2 stances active at once. Again, pick up more new stances. We also see some new abilities like Nightmare, Advanced Creative Violence, Emotional Vampire, Single-Mindedness, Master of the Order. So again, we can see some of these here. I'm not going to get into all of them. Second active stance obviously lets us have 2 stances at once. Nightmare. If you're willing to suffer a bad night's sleep with a dream born of your sacred emotion, you wake to find a magical steed behind you. You know what? All right, I applaud that being called Nightmare. That's pretty great. The pun there is on point. So we can summon we could summon a horse by having a bad dream. And then if we become emotionally engaged, Our horse can fly, or it gets faster than any horse. It can walk through walls. Every time you suffer a bad night's sleep, say what you dreamed about. You know, some dreams have been known to be prophetic. We can become an emotion vampire, master of the order, etc. And by the way, we have to choose either master of the order or dual wield. Everyone said the same thing, by the way, about the horse. You guys are worried about that rule, and the game has, you know, mechanical effects like you radiate fuckery or whatever it is. You know, like that's literally the mechanical effect of intimidating gaze. So one of the advances that we could pick up is emotion draining. You learn to channel your arcane weapon's hunger to siphon that emotion from another character. If the target doesn't resist, you gain that level of emotion, and the target now does not feel that emotion. If they want to resist, they make a charisma roll. And if they're not experiencing that emotion, you can drain it. So, like, if someone's feeling fear and you're a fear knight, right, you can drain the fear from them. Yeah, taking away someone's grief is very interesting. It's very cool. Emotion vampire. Your arcane weapon's hunger is out of control, and some emotion knights are choosing to chase that. When you use emotion draining on a being, that's where we can drain their grief. When you use emotion draining on a being who has either submitted or is incapable of resisting, an emotion knight can choose to feed on the target's potential to feel that emotion. Gain a single level of the emotion while removing the victim's ability to ever feel this emotion again. I was definitely thinking of Colin Robinson here. If the victim is currently feeling this emotion, gain an additional level of the emotion. This is primarily an ability for antagonists and villains. Characters who see this power in use will fear and hate its user the same way they would a dictator, which is, by the way, one of the other player character races or classes. So yeah, we could permanently remove someone's ability to feel grief. At level 8, we advance our die. At level 8, an emotion knight is called to confirm their choice and be welcomed into the order. Your weapon is taken from you and taken to a ceremonial place, a dungeon, and you find your way through it. In the center, your weapon, and one for each of the other 7 emotions. Gain the following: retrieve your weapon or pick one of the other 7 weapons. And if you do, pick a new stance or venting ability and swap any abilities related to a given emotion. You are now a member of the Order of Knights. If there is one in the fiction already, use it. If there isn't, create one with the GM. Well, okay. Got it. Cephalopod is saying that this is at level 8 because we're the D8 class, right? Correct. I spent 8 levels role-playing grief, and now I can just be rage instead. Correct. But remember, Avison, it's about the meta journey of our character, right? Like, the idea might be like, okay, ready? Let's imagine this. Like, maybe my persona, that's my human being, right? Maybe we'll like have like a Batman moment here, right? Like, they lost, maybe they lost their wife and daughter to a horrific crime, and they are just consumed by grief, and it sort of dominates their life. And then they go into the role-playing game, and that comes to the forefront as being they're the emotion knight of grief, And fundamentally, it seems like they are just, are they healing from this, or are they actually just leaning too far into it? And maybe at a certain point, they get to this realization that they don't want to feel grief anymore, right? They want to, they actually are angry. They're tired of being sad. They're angry about it, and they want to do something about it. And they're tired of just feeling sad about it. They want to be mad about it. And so like choosing the rage weapon is sort of a way of like representing your character, maybe emotionally moving past the grief and moving into anger. And maybe that's not a healthy decision, but it's maybe a representing that sort of emotional character arc that your persona is going through, right? Like, but you're doing it through the lens of the game, which is a game that we're also playing as a game, right? It's kind of like a never-ending story, right? Where Bastion realizes that we, the audience, are watching a movie about him, and that he is part of the never-ending story, which is the book, but it's also the movie that he's in. And he realizes that the book is actually about him. The movie, it's actually about him. He's the main character, not Atreyu, right? Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to how difficult it is to pull off or any of that nature. I haven't played the game. Again, it's not a review. It's just a first look. I'm just saying, like, I could see, I could definitely see where you're going into this, right? I mean, I think that's the core premise of the game. I don't know. Alternatively, right, we could embrace our grief, and maybe, we move towards being, we understand that our grief can help other people heal, and we take abilities like catharsis, and we take abilities like I don't know, emotional I don't know, what I'm just saying. I'm just trying to like think through ways that we could do that. Again, there's a I don't want to say like there's a defined character arc path, but I definitely feel like there's a natural progression built into this. It's similar to a playbook, right? From a PBTA game. There's sort of a natural progression that I think is built into the idea of the emotion knight, right? Because it even says at the beginning of the class, right? Like, process your tumultuous emotions by using them as incendiary fuel for your powers, right? So the idea is that like in the real world, we are just this grief-stricken, depressed person who is consumed by our grief. But when we go into the game, we become this emotion knight. And at first, we're kind of like playing up the sort of fantasy, right? That our grief makes us into this all-consuming, powerful thing. And then the game is basically asking us, do we grow from this, or do we embrace it? Do we stay in the fantasy world, or do we heal and grow and change and return to the real world, healed and growed and changed? Or do we succumb to these emotions and maybe we double down and it becomes worse, So, I mean, I think it's cool. I mean, is it weird? Yeah, it's weird, but I mean, again, these brought to you from the same publishers who made Heart. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's very Batman-esque, right? What's that line from Doctor Who when they're asking the museum curator to describe Vincent van Gogh, and he's like, he took the pain of his tortured life and turned it into ecstatic beauty, right? So it's like this idea of like can you take this emotion? Like in the real world, you're just a grief-stricken individual. But when you are brought in to die, you become this emotion knight, right? And it's like a hyper realistic, it's a hyper meta take on your problem, which is, again, it's interesting. Now the question is it double, triple meta, right? Like, are you actual real life person, right? Are you suffering from grief? So you make a character who's suffering from grief so that you then play an emotion knight, right? But yeah, anyways. So it's a very Nimble. What's up, Nimble? This is DIERPG, the RPG, the role-playing game. A game about playing a game that is a game where you play a game in a game. As a game. And I'm not being flippant when I say this. Did I summarize this correctly? It's RPG. I guess it is RPG Jumanji. Well, no, because it is, right, Cephalod Pod, because it's not just that the game that we're playing is an RPG. That is an RPG. It's this meta concept, right? That all RPGs are in the world of die, and that die is absorbing our energy by playing RPGs, right? Like, there is this meta it's like the never-ending story, right? The idea that our personas, I think, are part of the fractal nature, because they are people who are getting sucked into the RPG world, but they don't realize, but they are RPGs, right? Because we're playing them as RPGs. And it kind of raises this meta question of, like, are we in an RPG? Is this all just simulationism? You know what I mean? Like, I think there's this layers of it, right? That maybe you're supposed to be like, holy shit, am I really the emotion knight? Edward, who knows Evan pretty well, I would imagine at this point from his streams, says Evan would not like this game. So, I mean, to summarize it, Evan, you make a knight, and this class is called the emotion knight. You pick one emotion that you exemplify, and then as you start to feel that emotion, you can increase your emotional scale. Once your emotional scale reaches, say, overwhelming, you can use your emotion to defeat an entire army or even a mountain range, right? You just go full frog, and you take your arcane weapon, right? And you slash through the mountain. All right, now, I'm assuming we have 5 classes, and I'm assuming the Game Master class, which is the optional GM class, is a D20, by the way. I'm assuming there's a D4, a D6, a D8, a D10, and that means we're going to look at one more class, which is going to be the D12, because we have to look at the D12, right? Does anybody know which class is the D12 class? Is it the Godslayer one? Yeah. Look at that. We've got the exploded fractal D12. All right. That is cool graphic design that they do that. That's pretty cool. That is neat. All right, here is the Godbinder. Great art, by the way. That's what I assumed, Cephalopod, which is why I assumed the Godbinder was the... Right, if the Fellowship had the Emotion Knight, they could have just attacked the mountain. Okay, here we go. The Godbinder. Great art. You don't believe in gods. They exist. You owe the fire god for that time he burned that fortress, and you got that favor from the god of wind when you saved a rainforest. But believe? That's a strong word. You don't believe in gods. You believe in tools, useful tools. Because if you think about it, the difference between cleric and demonologist is the same difference as between freedom fighter and terrorist. All right, play a Godbinder if you want to unleash the power of a pantheon of your own design on the world, barter with the gods for anything you want for a price, Deal with the awful costs of the deals. So now we need to start thinking about like what is the analog for the damaged person in this? Is it someone who's lost their faith? Is it someone who's, whatever? I mean, to be clear, Cal, when it talked about the dictator, it said like the one emotion knight said, if you use this ability, you will be as hated as much as the dictator is. All right. We need wisdom and con. We start with 2. We could start with a 2-handed hammer and heavy protection. We could start with quarterstaff and robes, or we could start with leather gear. We don't have any. We have a heavy metal holy crusader, a beatific holy seer, wild tattoos looking for drugs, urbane street magician. We choose a contract with one of the gods. You have a first level relationship with the god. You can add your D12 to your dice pool anytime that god's power is influencing. So if you turn into a bear, you can include a D12 for bear-related tasks. If you create a magical sword, you could use your D12 to add to your attacks. Whether it is a scripture or a miracle, you get to include the D12. Okay? Scriptures are relatively limited in their flexibility. These are cantrips, basically, right? Like these are our rote things. Certain set spells that they are called scriptures. Rote magic that you just learn. Some come from specific gods. Some are accessible from any god. All Godbinders gain access to 3 scriptures. Blank blast. Attack a target at distance. Heal. And detect noun. The noun could be any noun related to that god. So for the god of the wild, you could do thorn blasts and detect wildlife. To cast a scripture, make a wisdom roll, add D12, and it has a difficulty of 0. If you roll a 1 on the D12, the spell incurs a god debt. God debt is how we mechanize the relationship between whether you owe a god or a god owes you. While you occasionally gain it from casting scriptures, you mostly go into it by bartering with the gods for miracles. For each god, a Godbinder can acquire up to 5 god debt. You can also be in credit. Hey, look at this. We got, instead of space mortgages, we now have deity mortgages. You can also be in credit to a god for up to 5 god debt, effectively making your god debt negative. Oh, okay. You can go up to 5 debt, but you can also get credit with a god. Cool. Okay, so we can actually be good with them. If you're in credit, you need to spend these before you accumulate debt. It's good for a god to owe you one. If you're in debt, the god debt can be called in at any time. They will request a task. It's up to the Godbinder what happens next. If it's accepted and completed, the god debt is removed as the god is satisfied. If it's accepted and failed, the god debt stays the same as the god is not yet satisfied. And if it's refused, you suffer 1 wound for every point of the god debt that the god chooses to remove. Okay. Miracles. At any point, you can speak to a god and request a miracle. If the god is willing, they'll give you a cost in exchange for the miracle. After haggling, decide if you accept or not. If you agree, it happens. If you don't, it doesn't. Costs tend to be one of 4 things: taking on more debt, performing a specific task, owing them an open-ended favor, or making a specific promise. Miracles can be anything that god could conceivably do. For example, beseech the fire god to turn a flaming blast into a massive fireball, or have a healing spell affect your whole party. Making a fireball destroy an entire city, well, that's probably going to be 4 debt, but it could also cost a favor. You don't usually get to pay off such huge miracles piecemeal. A Godbinder is primarily meant to make deals with gods they have relationships with. However, in the course of adventures, you may become aware of another god, and it's possible to make deal with them. If you have promised something to do for a god and choose not to do it, the god will spurn you, acquiring god debt equal to the scale that you have broken. And then we have a list of example gods. We've got the god of light. We've got the god of the wild, the fire god, the underworld god, the eldritch god, the god of excess, the god of inebriation, delight, sensuality, and pure, impure hedonism. With 3 levels: party hard, blackout drunk, and higher state of consciousness. Yeah, very Slaanesh coded. The sea god, the fate god, the forge god, the war god, the storm god, the trickster god, and all the things that go into there. You know, storm god lets us throw lightning, and we can dance below the clouds. We get turned into pure lightning and propelled into the skyward and return to Earth at any place of our choosing. It's funny because a thunderstorm is rolling in as we speak right now. I see you. I see you, storm god. All right. When we advance, here's our advancement chart. First, we choose to increase our level in a god. Remember, that's our relationship status with that god. So most of our advancement is just gaining levels in God. Sounds funny to say. We can also do things like bank gods. We can go rogue. We can develop mysterious ways. Wicked or divine is all the way up there. And of course, because it's D12, at level 12, we get the your heresy is noted advancement, the mandatory advancement at level 12. At level 12, your heresy is noted. A god who you have no levels in gets jealous. We've got this bit of fiction. How can you not care about me at all? Why don't you slip into my DMs? Your other gods glare. Don't you dare pay them any attention. So you have a jealous god who's mad that you're not slipping into their DMs. You are able to rearrange all the levels in all of the gods that you have, including this new jealous god. Work out how each god feels about your decision and go down the list. Things further down the list overrule things higher up the list. If the god's level is now higher than when they started, they are happy. If it's lower, they are unhappy. If it's the highest, they're happy. If it was highest and now they're not, it's unhappy. If the god's level is 0, they are furious. So again, basically, it seems like each class has an ability when you reach level, 4, 6, 8, 10, or 12, depending on the die size, that you basically kind of get to do a class rebuild. Okay, so let's take a step back here for a moment. What is this class really about? It could be about faith. It could also be about, a metaphor for, for capitalism. It could be a metaphor for feeling torn and pulled between different, responsibilities and debts. It could be a metaphor for, being a shitty person who just uses people, I like this. The first 5 gods are good basic choices. The rest can be a little bit esoteric. If you're really stuck, just pick the god of light. Healers are always popular. So yeah, very strange, very weird. There we go. Now the master is the GM class, but we're going to skip that one. Okay. Number 5, rituals. Now we are at chapter 5, rituals, which in any other place would be called, running the game. That would literally be the name of this chapter. But instead, It's called Rituals because the game is weird like that. We also have chapter 6, which is how to, GM the game, how to run it, how to create your own campaign. Because again, the game is designed to be played, as it says, for 2 to 4 sessions. So if you want to actually like build your own world and like turn it into a proper lengthy campaign, it actually is kind of more of like an optional add-on. There's also a bestiary, some information about campaign ideas, some pre-built scenarios so that you could play those sort of, multi-shots is what we usually call them, instead of a one-shot. So let's take a look at rituals, and we'll probably call it after we get through this chapter, because by that time it'll probably be close to 10 o'clock. So we'll take a look at this here. This chapter is a set of procedures and rituals for running the purest expression of die. It is what you should play first. Everything else in the manual built by... We'll read through this to make sure we didn't miss anything here. Because again, the one thing about this game is, I'm okay. Number one, let's take a moment here. Can you imagine showing this game or showing up with this game or someone from some other whatever showing up at a table and this is the game that they're playing and they are like some, 5e critter, you know what I mean? Like, can you imagine them trying to, can you imagine them trying to just wrap their head around this? I mean, you and me, right? We've covered a lot of stuff on this channel, right? We know about other games, and we even know about some of the weirder, stranger out games out there, like Chubo's Marvelous Witch Granting Engine, and Ryutama and Wander Home, and all this other stuff. But can you imagine springing this game on just the typical average, I get most of my GMing advice from Ginny D and Dungeon Dads or Dungeon Dudes or whatever. 5e player. Like I think they might have a stroke. I think they would be like, wait a second, I don't even understand what words are you? I don't even what are we talking about? Like how are we talking? Like what is going on here? And while I applaud that, I also am just like, it's difficult for me to not look at these games. Now, we talk about L5R as game designers, right? And this is, for me, the purest one of the purest expressions I've ever seen of a Phoenix game, right? Where this is not someone trying to create a game. This is not someone trying to make money. This is someone who is trying. They are using the role-playing game medium as, or I should say, they're using role-playing games as a vessel, as a medium for their art, right? That's the only way I could probably describe it. Games like this are, to me, more, art house projects than they are. I don't even want to use the word functional game because that's wrong. Obviously, this game has an intent, but it's not a game in the most traditional sense. Is all I can say. And on one hand, I do really respect it because it shows how much RPGs have changed and grown. But I also understand that it can leave people with a very, very bad taste in their mouth. Online play. Die is a game which fetishizes physical objects and physical spaces. However, the few tweaks, it is playable online. I respect that. All right. So basically, this is the way you play the game. It's 2 to 6 players. One is the GM. It takes 2 to 4 sessions to play. So the core game is 1 to 5 players with a GM, 2 to 4 sessions. Each player, including the GM, creates a flawed human being, right? Because the GM makes a GM, right? Because you're a role-playing group inside the game of the role-playing group. So as the GM, you make a GM who is then the GM inside the game that you're GMing, who then goes into, right, the game. So each player, including the GM, creates a flawed human being from the real world. These people are a social group who at one point in their life used to play role-playing games together. This is your player's persona. Role-playing as your persona, you now gather to play a new strange game together, Die. In character, as your persona, you make your Paragon, right? So you are role-playing as your character, making your other character. At this point, the personas are transported to a fantasy world based on the old role-playing game you used to play back in the day. And you get transformed into the Paragon characters that you've just designed. Traverse this fantasy world, which echoes the persona's obsessions, their failings, and their losses. They discover that the GM's persona, aka the antagonist, is responsible for bringing them here for their own personal reasons. They confront the antagonist and discover they must come to a consensus on whether they stay or leave, one way or the other. The personas decide whether the game will end or go on forever. This is a highly flexible structure, apparently, and will alter radically depending on the players and the personas. It is akin to the first arc of Die, the Fantasy Heartbreaker. Yes, codified villain DMPC. Well, I also think there's like a little bit of like a meta thing here, right? Which is where like maybe like the GM, right? Because like the GM has their own personal reason for bringing you here, and they're the antagonist, and they're basically like maybe they're mad at you because you guys never finished that one campaign or something. I don't know. Anyways, it's recommended to run for 2 to 4 sessions of play. It can run on indefinitely, but you have to kind of look up a whole separate section of rules there for running a long-term campaign. So here is the rituals. First, preparation. Gather what you need. Then prepare the magic circle. Determine the tone of the game. Decide what inter-party conflict will be available. Decide if the dictator is available as a class. Set out the desired tone of the ending. Everyone says what they want to leave out of the game. Everyone says that they want, right? So create a palette. That's what we call it, creating a palette. Outline accountability and safety tools. Then create your persona. Explain the concept. Ask questions. Make notes. Take a short break. Tell the players that when they return from the short break, they will now be playing as their persona, not as them. During the break, decide which persona will be given each Paragon. If in doubt, ask parent players. Then, when everyone returns, make small talk. Then, role-playing as your new characters, you're going to introduce Die the game to the players as the players. Distribute the dice and sheets to the players. Go through the sheets and make your characters in character. Tell the players to pick up their dice, close their eyes, and lower the dice to the table. Tell them to open their eyes, and now they are somewhere else. All players, including the GM, now stop playing as their players and now start playing and acting as if you were playing a standard RPG. The personas are in a dark fantasy version of the room that the players are in. They are still their real human selves. The dice are in front of them. The master's persona grabs the D20 and transforms into their character, uses a cheat token to teleport away. At any point, if a persona grabs their dice, they transform into their character. Shortly after, Fallen arrive. These are orcs, monsters. Afterwards, the players can leave the area. They find themselves in the bar they started their first fantasy campaign ever in. And then we end the session. So the first session is basically you're playing, and then you sit down, and then suddenly you're in this dark fantasy version of your characters, and then I, as the GM, grab the D20, and I transform into my evil antagonist version, and then I use one of my cheat tokens, which is a meta currency, which is now a real currency, and I teleport away, and then you have to grab your dice to become your character, and then orcs arrive, and then you have a fight, and then you leave, and when you leave, you find yourself in the fantasy world that you first played in your imaginary RPG, which didn't exist from these characters' past lives. That was the bar that they met in their first campaign, and then that is where the session ends, and that's session 1. I think I got it. And then we do stars and wishes. Okay, fair enough. Then we prep for session 2. And then we do some later sessions as well. Ultimately, at any point in the final encounter, any player can stop and call for a vote. Ask each player if they want to end the game. The second someone doesn't want to end the game, we stop. If everyone agrees to go home, they go home. If everyone agrees to stay, they stay. If they don't come to an agreement, the world is destroyed. If the group is at an impasse, start the world's ending. Before you destroy the world, give the players one last chance to end the game. If anybody chooses to leave die, everyone is back where they started, except anyone left behind as a fallen. For each persona who made it home, ask, how have you changed? To each fallen persona, ask how their absence affects the world. If the players choose to stay in the game, for each person who died, that's what fallen persona means, ask how their absence affects the real world. For each persona who voted to stay, ask each player what their life is like now that they have chosen to stay in the fantasy world. Perform the closing ritual one final time. After the players answer the questions, the GM can add a note to it. And then that's it. Easy. Easy peasy. We need 2 to 6 players, a book, a D20, a D12, a D10, a D8, a handful of D6, one of which can be written on with a marker, and a D4. Writing utensils, including one that won't ruin your dice, a handful of tokens, and a printout of the character sheets. Explain the game. This is a group of real-world, deeply flawed humans who have played a role-playing game together and are now gathered together to play one more game, which ends up transporting them to a fantasy world and trying to find their way home or not. The game rewards emotionally complicated, flawed characters. There is a potential for player versus player combat. The aim of the game is to explore who these people really are, and in doing so, maybe explore who you really are. And, yeah. There we go. We could have standard fantasy. Dark fantasy, by the way, is the default tone of the game. And then there's also dark horror as an option. You also get to choose between intra-party conflict or not. Do you all want to allow someone to play the dictator, which is a paragon that's able to influence other people's emotions by using the voice with a capital V? And then we also get to decide at the beginning, what kind of ending do we want to have? Do we want to have a hard-won happy ending, an emotionally complicated but satisfying conclusion, or a cathartic tragedy? Then we do our palette. What are we leaving out? What do we want to put in? We do some X card generation, yada, yada, yada. We take some notes about who our characters are that aren't our characters but are our persons. Then we get together. We talk about why we used to play games, what happened, why did we go away, who were we when we were kids, growing up, yada, yada. What happened to your real life? What's terrible? You know, are you married? You divorced? You have kids? What's your greatest responsibility? Then during the break, we pick one of the character classes. The master, the D20, is reserved for the game master. Otherwise, you get to pick dictator, which is like an evil bard, the fool, which is like a swashbuckling rogue type, the Emotion Knight, which is like the paladin, the fighter, the Neo, which is like a thief, a hacker, and then the Godbinder, which is obviously the last one we just looked at, which is a cleric analog. Which is why you can only have a max size of 6, because each person can only be one class. You can't have duplicates. When you come back and you're role-playing as your people who are about to play a role-playing game, the GM, who is not the GM, you are now the GM inside the game, says, hey, remember that thing back in the 90s, those kids, that rumor about those kids who were playing an RPG and they just disappeared for 2 years? No one had anyone, ever idea. Well, you know what? I managed to get a copy of this game off the internet. Let's play it. Then This is, by the way, the rules of the game. Distribute the dice in the character sheets. Start with all players other than the fool. Take the dice, D4, D8, D10, D12. Lock eyes and intensely recite, "This is your die. There is no other die like it in this whole game. This is special. This is yours. Use it well, Godbinder." Then place it in their hand and gently close their hand around it. The Fool, which is the D6 class, because everyone has a pile of D6s. By the way, I want to be very clear about this. At your table, there is only one D12, and it will be in the hands of the Godbinder. There is only one D8, and it is in the hands of the Emotion Knight. There is only one D20. It is in the hands of the Game Master, or the Master. Oh, it's very clearly taken from Full Metal Jacket, right? This is my rifle. There are many like it, but this one is mine. The Fool uses a D6, which is what everybody has. The Fool gets given their dice last with a slightly tweaked ritual. This is your die. It's exactly the same as every other die in the game. There's nothing special about this die at all. Use it, Fool. And then lastly, and this one is mine. Then, after everyone regains consciousness, after passing out from the cringe, you can then proceed with the next step. Yeah, there you go. That's the game. I'm sorry, the ritual. And then a bunch of monsters attack you. And then after a bunch of monsters attack you, you leave and you enter into... They move through the exit, which is a series of steps curling up towards a trapped door. When they open it, they find it emerges into the middle of a fantasy tavern. All the clientele turn to look at you. Horrifically, despite having never actually been here, you all recognize it instantly. It's the tavern where you first started your first adventure of the fantasy game that you all played together 20 years ago. Welcome to the Thirsty Dragon. And that's the end of the first session. Okay. So, yeah. So, what do you think? All right, so this is our poll. I give you guys a lot of latitude here. Here's your vote.
Scott if tipped $25. Here is the $25 I was going to spend buying this.
Oh, that's funny, Scotty. Thank you, Scotty. Thank you for that, by the way. Elzanet says, as a person who ran this for over a year, it's great, but I was hoping you would look at the player master. Oh, you mean like the master class? We can look at the master class. We can look at it. Scotty, that's hilarious. You know what, that guys, I completely agree with you. They definitely whole-assed it. They did not shirk or step back or hesitate for even one moment, right? They went all in, and I appreciate the hell out of
Edward tipped $5. There's a lot of no on that poll, Derek. Crying face emoji.
There sure are. There's well, I wanted to make sure because like there's a lot of people there. Like there's some people who it's not just a no, it's also like an emphatic no, and I wanted to give them the ability to really express that, Oh, I know, but I'm not. What's interesting is if you choose not to play with the dictator, you can only have 4 PCs. So that's kind of funny. It's like, well, if you want to have 5 PCs, someone's gonna have to be the asshole class, basically. Sure, we can take a look. I'll leave the poll up. We can take a look at the master class. Its own separate chapter, by the way. I mean, look at that. I mean, that's fucking Sauron. I mean, that's fucking awesome. Look at that art. That's amazing. That's fucking awesome. One asshole per play group is statistically likely. I love it. All right, so this might actually be like my favorite art from the entire fucking game. That's amazing. I love the dice, the D20 in his, instead of like the Eye of Sauron, it's, yes, the GM has an actual character in die. The master is a magic user oh, okay, so the wizard, I was like, where's the wizard? The wizard is the game master. The rules rule, and you rule the rules, and you never, ever cheat. Ever. Oh, this is the GM section. We can be honest. You cheat all the time. Play the master if you want to facilitate the game, break the rules of space and time, cheat reality to get what you want. You need high int and high con. You start with a quarterstaff or a gun. You get to wear wizard robes or a killer's suit or some fetish wear out of a 1990s vampire LARP. Or something else. So you can wear wizard robes straight out of a 1980s kids fantasy cartoon, killer suits straight out of a 1980s corporate bad guy, or fetish wear out of a 1990s vampire LARP. Your master has the mastery ability. This means they're allowed to add their D20 when they are casting spells. If the D20 is added to the pool, the dice roll has the 20 special, which is activated on the results of a 20, where it now counts as 2 successes. The master has control over the nature of the reality of the world in which you are visiting. Both the rules of the world and the rules of the game and the rules of the narrative. This means that they can perform magical effects equivalent to anything that a powerful wizard could do. Like any NPC, the master can perform any spell that you think is reasonable. Fly, throw fireballs, turn invisible, heal people, create incredible fireworks, just, to be a wizard. The exception to this is any magical effect potent enough to match hardcore cheats. Hardcore cheating. The master's control of the rules is such that they can break them. This is called cheating, altering the game in a special way. You have 2 kinds of cheating available to you. A miraculous event, teleport to escape, create a temptation, summon a powerful monster, create a fortress, regain your mastery, bend any rule. Or undo the effects of what just happened, i.e. you're killed and you regenerate. You can only safely use these abilities by spending your cheating tokens. At the start of each session, gain cheating tokens equivalent to the number of players in the game. When a combat begins, check the number of players who are opposing you. If you have more cheat tokens than players who are opposing you, you reduce your cheating tokens to that number. So if people die, you lose them if you don't spend them. If you have to spend a cheat, you have to spend a cheat token to cheat. If you have no cheat tokens remaining, you can still cheat, but you risk your very existence. Hide your D20 in one of two identical places. Your hands will do in a pinch. Another player picks a hiding place. If they choose incorrectly, you get away with it, and the effect happens. If they find it, the powers that be notice you. These are the judges of all reality, and they do not approve of masters cheating. You will not survive their attention. So basically, the GM can die if they cheat. They're only allowed to cheat so much. If they cheat too much, your GM can quite literally die. Okay, this is awesome. This is awesome. So that's pretty cool. Being caught by the powers that be is most likely to occur when a master has no cheat tokens left and are trying to undo the effects of what just happened on an attack that's hit them. Not being sure if you're delivering the killing blow or not on a master is a key part of Die's climax. This maintains tension while giving the joyous moment when a master is consumed by their own hubris. Tell me that there isn't some sort of meta statement being made here. And that's it. That's it. That's the rules. For the master, that's the master chapter. I mean, they get a whole thing here. The advancing on the masters. Look at the cheats. You can as you advance as a game master. There's hardcore cheating. You have to pick a preference. Are you gamist, simulationist, or narrativist? Oh man, that is fucking awesome. And then look, you can get gamist cheats. There's consequences for cheating as a game. There's consequences for narrativist cheating, and then there's the narrativist, simulationist, and gamist division is lifted terminology from the old threefold model from Ron Edwards. Go nose at it, but know that the conversation has moved on since Edward thought it up. Okay, that was fantastic. Wow, that is fucking hilarious. I mean, it's meta funny, by the way, but by the way, so this is the Game Master's progression. New rules, masteries, a dungeon of your own, to the dungeon. That is fantastic. And by the way, the Game Master does not gain mastery until level 20, where you become a Grand Master. I want to see what happens when you're Grand Master. All right. Die advancements assume that you will end your campaign well before the Paragons reach level 20. But if they do, there is a monster lurking out there for a master. When you reach level 20, you become all-powerful for exactly 1 second. What do? You are then consumed by Die forever. And that's it. That's it. By the way, the assumption is that the master is an antagonist and is trying to consume and destroy the players, by the way. Breaking the game with hardcore cheating. That is hilarious. Fair enough. I just assumed it's like, it's Reddit. It's the powers that, like you said, it's the powers that be, right? Well, that is, flip table, everyone dies. Well, that is absolutely completely ridiculous, obviously, in all sets of 4%. Yeah. So that's quite the thing there. No, there's no ability called Rocks Fall, everyone dies, unfortunately. There's a great rule. Because as you advance, you can create new rules. You collaborate with the this is the player GM. That's what I see. Anyways, That's amazing. That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Because that Appendix 1 that we were just in is when a player is a master. The only advance in the basic master is to gain a stat point every time the rest of the groups does. They don't gain any other abilities. They're already powerful due to it. Anyways, what a really that was fucking incredible. So yeah. If this even remotely interests you, I should note that they currently do have a Kickstarter going on. Obviously, they didn't pay us. That'd be cool if they would have, but currently there is a mega dungeon on BackerKit. Go figure. I wonder if it's part of the maybe it's part of the is it part of the mega dungeon? I know there's like all these mega dungeon things going on here. But yeah, apparently they are creating a mega dungeon for Die, which is hilarious. And that actually, believe it or not, is way more interesting to me than just playing normal Die. I love Die, the mega dungeon. Yes, it is part of the mega dungeon month. Okay. Die Mega Dungeon is part history field trip, part punishing gauntlet, part nightmare hellscape, made of your own desires, and part lovingly created saw trapped, intended to teach you once and for all what THACO actually means. In the fewest possible words, the meta dungeon is a full, it's not a mega dungeon, it's a meta dungeon. The meta dungeon is a full-length campaign for the Die role-playing game. What is a meta dungeon? Great question. We made it up. It's like a mega dungeon, but more. Mega dungeons are really massive dungeons, multiple floors, entire ecologies, and societies, a whole campaign's worth of materials from exploration, interconnection, and secrets. A meta dungeon is just like that. As well as exploring a multi-level dungeon, you're also adventuring through 50 years of TTRPG history. That's awesome. That's awesome. So it's not only a mega dungeon, it's a meta dungeon. As you go deeper into the dungeon, presumably maybe you go deeper into the history of role-playing games. Yeah. This is another way to describe the game. What is DIERPG, right? For people who didn't just watch this first look. This is on their backer kit, by the way. Based on the comic of the same name and created by the original writer and artist, Die the RPG is an award-winning experiment in just how metatextual we can possibly get. It's an exploration into how much the events of the 1980s Dungeons & Dragons cartoon would have mentally and emotionally scarred the kids who got sucked into their own D&D campaign. It's goth Jumanji. It's postmodernist Gygaxian isekai. It's role-playing game squared, or role-playing games Inception. Players create a persona, an ordinary real-world loser who's bored of their job, regrets not going back to uni to get that master's, wishes they hadn't had their kids so early, and so on. And that persona makes a Paragon, a two-dimensional, author-insert, super-powered fantasy hero in the vein of your average D&D character to play Die, a mysterious role-playing game. The Godbinder is a cleric with some aggressive divine negotiation tactics. The Neo is an anachronistic cyberpunk with a robot dog. The bulletproof fool is simply too blasé and cool to die. Then, wouldn't you know it, upon meeting to play this mysterious role-playing game, everyone is transported into a bespoke otherworld and becomes their mighty paragons. Their choice as to whether to fight their way back to the real world or stay in a pretend universe is theirs, and dead players don't get to vote. And that's the game that we just looked at, which is saying something. Now, before we do go, I want to download the zip file because I do want to take a look at the character sheets. I assume that these are the character sheets. Yeah, so here are what the character sheets look like. So we'll take a look at the ones that we actually played. Or we covered, I should say. So here is the Emotion Knight. Right? So this would be the Grief Knight. That was the one we did it. Marcy, no, you didn't have to do that. If my character's dead, I'm dead. So this is our character sheet. Here's our stats. Now remember that I think these are the pre-gens. You get your arcane weapon. The core mechanic is very John Harper-esque. It's written right there on the fucking book, right there on your character sheet, including with icons and iconography. You get the class die right there, big D8. You remember, you use your D8 to track your emotional level, right? Here is our sacred emotion, our arcane weapon, our emotional scale. And again, this is a pre-gen character. So, these things are filled in. So these are pretty cool looking pre-gen characters. Here's our game master. Very cool. This is the game that Jack Chick was warning us about. It's correct. I will teach you real ultimate power. And then Jesus commands us to gather up our RPG books and burn them. I think that's how that goes. Actually, hold it.
Dungeons and Dragons. Satan's game.
So, very, very cool. There you go. Kowout says the rest of the ritual chapter has great procedures and GM advice on creating flawed personas and how to work those flaws into prep and build the entire story around them. Yeah, we touched on that when it talked about preparing for session 2, right? That was like the preparing for session 2 concept. Yeah, session 2 preparation, right? Which is after you did that session 1, which ends with the fight against the fallen, and then you enter into the tavern and you realize, oh my God, we're inside the game. We're inside the role-playing game that we played 20 years ago. Then between that, the GM preps for session 2, right? And this is where you look into their personas. What are they lacking? What can you tempt them with? What are the kind of encounters that you should play up against those decisions and those personalities and those flaws? They want to be attractive again. They want to be reunited with someone who died. They want to come out of the closet. They want to become a musician that they gave up on their music or whatever. And then ultimately decide too, what does your analog, right? What does the antagonist GM, what does the master want? What are they trying to get? Here, it goes back to the classic Dead Ale's Wives Watchtower quote, right? Which is
Dungeons
what that's
and
from,
Dragons.
right? Where he goes,
Satan's
the
game.
GM's fighting. And then one of the players goes like, oh, that's creative. He goes, creativity? You think I'm worried about creativity? Jesus Christ, Mark. I'm a dungeon master. I create worlds, universes. Every potion you drank, I mixed. Every magic item you find, I put it there. Remember when you fought that giant? Yeah, man. I rolled a 20, double damage. No, man. You rolled a 19. But I fudged it. You wanted it so badly. So I decided to help because I like helping. And so right now you find yourself roasting in the fiery belly of a platinum dragon. And so you need to ask yourself where your priorities lie. It's one of my favorite skits of all time. Anyways. So I don't really know what to say. I somehow understand this game completely and somehow less than ever. Which maybe is the point. It's very existential. Maybe that's what I'm experiencing right now. I'm just having an existential crisis. Well, you know what? I see why it won an award, because this is the type of role-playing game that nobody plays and wins lots of awards. Sorry, but it's true. It's true. It's true. Yeah, right. Oscar bait. Right. Exactly. Oh, yes. This won the Origin Game of the Year award. Let's see if we can look up other winners of the Origin. It sure did. It sure did. Oh, sorry. Best role playing. It didn't win. It won best role playing. Okay, here we go. Last year's winners was Yazaba's Bed and Breakfast. Or Yaziba's Bed and Breakfast. I don't know what the right term is. Right, it's a role-playing game about a role-playing game. So, yeah. 2019, Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition won. In 2010, the Dresden Yazeba. Oh, okay, Yazeba. In 2013, the Marvel... In 2013, the Marvel Heroic Role-Playing Game won, and I think this game is terrible. Just to point out, it is pronounced repost, not repost. Thank you. Yeah. Hey, to be clear, I think like in the 1970s, I think Dungeons and Dragons won, so there's that. Yeah, it's an award-winning game, but yes, I mean it's it's a great question. I'm going to go out on a limb, Outercraft, and say this game is probably going to be more of a, but I don't know, right? Dungeon Crawler Carl, right? Shouldn't Dungeon Crawler? It's up to like $7 million, right? The Kickstarter. Shouldn't Dungeon Crawler Carl be just like this, right? Don't you have to make a character who then gets transported into the dungeon world or whatever? Isn't it a lit RPG? It should be just like this. I think people are very primed for this. You know, maybe this was ahead of the curve. This game walked so Dungeon Crawl Carl could run. There you have it. Well, I will say this. Rowan Hall and whatever it's called, Rowan Hall and Deckard or whatever it's called. Rowan, Rook, and Deckard continue to create, publish, I should say, very strange games, which again, I think are extremely Phoenix coded and really explore the idea of role-playing games as an art and as an expression and as a as a means to explore the human condition, as opposed to like, hey, we should sit around and drink some beers and kill some goblins, right? Like there's many levels here going through this. What is the verdict on the game? I do not give verdicts on my first looks, right? I try to avoid that. Instead, I try to answer the question. What is this game about? Well, I think we very clearly know what this game is about. Does the game have mechanics that support that? It sure does seem to. And then does the game's advancement support that? Well, the game's advancement actually is it's kind of like both not existent, but also existent, because the core assumption of the game is that you're only going to play it for like, the equivalent of one movie. Like you're going to play it for one Jumanji's worth of movie. And then at the end, the players are either going to decide to stay in the imaginary world, right? Think about like, you remember the movie Pleasantville, right? At the end of the Pleasantville movie, right? Tobey Maguire's character decides to go back to the real world, whereas Reese Witherspoon's character, who was messed up and struggle busing in the real world, decides to stay in Pleasantville so that she can like go to college and stuff. So like, while in this game you have to make a decision as a group, there's kind of this idea of like, will you, or there's kind of like it's almost Inception-esque, right? Where it's like, or like Cypher from The Matrix, where, there might be people who go, you know what? I don't want to go back to the real world. I want to stay here where I'm a superhero and powerful. I don't, or I want to be, I don't want to face the horrors of the real world, which is kind of a very nihilistic, dreadful way to think of it. But, the idea is that you play through this in, 2 to 4 sessions, and then you have that moment of decision, and then that's it. That's the game. So, like, the concept of advancement is almost like an optional afterthought. But the way that the game is described is it takes place on a die, the world die, and each of the 20 sides of the die is another adventure realm, challenge, problem area. And every time you beat that region, essentially, you level up. So, you know what? I think that's kind of cool. So, I mean, the advancement is pretty basic in that respect. It's tied to, basically beating the game. But it's not even really, I can't really judge it on that respect because of it. Does this mega game? Hell no. Does this heroic deed? Hell no. For sure. So. One thing I think I want to point out is that if a persona dies and becomes fallen, they can kill another persona to come back to life. Nice. No, I don't find myself jumping at the bit. Again, the fundamental concept of, Portal Fantasy, Iki side, Portal Fantasy, I think, is a little bit more interesting to me. I mean, Chronicles of Narnia and stuff and whatever, stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff that qualifies as Portal Fantasy. But the idea of me going into a world, I think is probably a little bit more, a little bit more interesting than the idea of like this avatar of me exists inside this other world. That is less interesting to me in general. I mean, I don't like the genre as a whole, but I would say that I'm it doesn't really tickle my jimmies. As a person who led this for a year, 6 months of weekly sessions is probably great as well. That's a lot. I mean, that's right. That's 26 sessions. I mean, that's probably longer than most people's campaigns these days, Really, you think this is closer to Portal Fantasy than Isekai, but aren't you quite literally becoming this hyper-realized superhero version of yourself who can like cut through mountains? That's what I'm specifically talking about. I'm talking about like when Alice, goes through the looking glass, she's still just Alice. When the kids go into Narnia, they are just still the kids, Still, fair play. I mean, yeah, I mean, you played it. You played a full campaign of it. I respect it. There's a morbid curiosity there for me, I suppose. But you would have to have like the absolute perfect group who appreciated the meta-ness as much as you did. You'd all need to be in on the joke, I suppose. It's a very bizarre game, Mark, for sure. But Heart was a very bizarre game, and Spire is not quite as bizarre, but it's still pretty bizarre. I mean, there's some bizarre games out there. And that's what you get here on Knights of the Last Call. You get the first looks. Sometimes we do, See, and now when I'm talking about playing freaking the One Ring, doesn't the One Ring suddenly look a lot more appealing? People are like, I don't understand how you could ever play a game in Middle Earth when the canon exists. It racks my brain, and I can't even imagine what that would be like as a campaign. Really? That racks your brain? But games like DIERPG exist, Like, okay, come on. What is the Bizarre School? Well, if you mean clan from Legend of the Five Rings, yes. Phoenix Clan is the idea of RPG design that has an agenda to express a concept or an ideal through the game, usually to get people to really like your microfiction or your love of a certain time period or history or some bizarre, super fascination that you have, right? Yeah. Anyways, I mean, obviously there's more to the game. We didn't cover literally everything. There's elements about there's a bestiary if you want to fight monsters. There's advice for building your own campaign worlds, and then in the back, the scenarios. There's a total party kill scenario. There's a conquest scenario. Do you remember the first time we killed a kobold and took its stuff? Scenario. Development hell is one of the scenarios. You're all on an indie game design team working on the creative director's masterwork. The project has been in progress for years, and the company has been in a crunch, punishing amounts of overtime for most of the last year. It's running out of money. Most people have left the team. It's becoming sort of an industry joke. Most people think the game will never come out, and there's at least 1 year of development ahead. Today, you're having a video conference meeting to do a team exercise to try increase morale. You're playing some old 90s role-playing games. And then apparently you get sucked into, the game world. And presumably the game master is the creative lead of the project, right? So now it's a meta. Because right now you're playing as characters who are in this meta who are then resolving their thing through this, through that, through this. Which is pretty crazy. So who's running this at NightCon? Well, you know what? Somebody added to the list. Let's see. Let's take a look at their gameography, by the way. I do want to take a look at that. So I've played a lot of games in the last few years. So Paranoia. There you go. Dungeon World / Apocalypse Worlds. It does mention you can see the fingerprints there. Die has little mechanically in common, but it owes a huge amount of its grammar and visual style. Monster Hearts 2, a game of sexy, queer, teenage, angsty monsters, and a metaphor run gloriously rampant. It is Ginger Snaps the RPG. Die doesn't mechanize relationships like Monster Heart does for aesthetic reasons, but I can't say I wasn't tempted. Respect. When the Dark is Gone. Not actually an influence, but working on a parallel evolution. Becky Annison's game. Oh, I do have the Seven Wonders anthology. I don't recall this one, but I do own Pellegrin's Past Seven Wonders anthology. Do I? I don't know where that is. Somewhere. I'd have to find it. It's down near the bottom of a list somewhere. Legend Lords of Chaos. 2 RPG strategy games with spell construction rules that are a clear influence for how player masters assemble rules. I'll bet classic RPG Ars Magica does the exact same thing, but I've never read it. Oops. Noun verb type situation. Merps. Hey, we were just talking about this at the beginning of the Stains. So this is the Iron Crown Enterprises Ice Middle-earth role-playing game. And the very first game I ever played, and as a very confused 10-year-old, generally speaking, whenever I make a dumb instinctive decision when designing die, it's harkened back to some formative thing I picked up from this. I would never play this game in 2019, but simultaneously I can never escape it. So we're gonna be that's on our first look list. Alas Vegas, James Wallace Lynch's game of memory loss. I don't know this one. Fiasco, seminal narrative storytelling to the idiom of the Coen brothers style. I've played a lot of narrative games, but Fiasco is the one that made me realize this. For the Queen, very cool. Narrative card-driven game from Darrington Press, by the way. Halo. Hey, we talked about this earlier. Invented the shield and health dual health system in video games, which is a clear influence on the Diamond system. We mentioned this for their system. And of course, Blades in the Dark, Magic, Punk, Peaky Blinders, gang warfare. And they did mention the flashback, right? Which is we saw the flashback mechanism as well. Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 3rd Edition, the one that everybody hates. The system which grew into Genesis started here. I always knew that die would run off a dice pool system, but reading a pool of dice for information rather than successes led to the special dice rules. The Mountain Witch,
Apex
the narrative game as well.
On a scale of
It's a
1
weird
to
one.
10, how likely are you to ever play or run this game?
On a scale of 1 to 10, how likely am I to ever play or run this game? How likely am I to play this game? A 2 out of 10. How likely am I to run this game? 3 out of 10. Heart/Spire. We've been talking about this all the time here. Ooh, Legacy, Life Among the Ruins. This is a post-apocalyptic generational survivor game. Of course, we couldn't mention anything without Robin Laws. And then The Gauntlet. Not a game, but a play community. Gauntlet published. Oh, these are people that do Brindlewood. Closest to Die is Trophy Dark, which is a game of doom adventures going into an environment that tortures them. But you want to nose at Hearts of Wulin, which is a good game. I have that. And, of course, Brindlewood Bay. Murder, She Wrote X Cosmic Horror. And, of course, we've got books and games and films. Jumanji. Time Bandits. It's a Wonderful Life. That's nice. We got some episodes from television, including the Dungeons & Dragons Adventure Saturday morning cartoon show. I'm always so impressed by people being inspired by, like, I can never imagine making an RPG and being inspired by, like, a music video. That's just not something I feel like would ever be a thing. Like, obviously, like, you know, mostly, I mean, my influence would pretty much mostly be, like, games, but, yeah. Yeah, Robin Laws is great. We covered Hillfolk on the stream as well. Yeah, I mean, it is a pariah. I mean, Warhammer 3rd edition might be more hated than 4th edition D&D, especially amongst the Warhammer people. I mean, they really hated that game. So, well, this was no, they did. Oh, you're right. They did not. No, they didn't credit the original Casey Roberts, because in the original Jumanji, they always stay as themselves, and Jumanji comes out of the game. In the sequel series, which normal people go into the game and, like, become these super characters, right? Like, little kids become The Rock, you know, or Karen Gillian, right? Or whoever, you know. So the new Jumanji movies are very much in this vein, whereas the original Jumanji is actually not. Anyways, I don't know what to say about this one. It was definitely a first look. Again, am I likely to ever play this game? No. Is there a world where I might run it? Maybe, only because I think it's interesting. It's not designed for a one-shot, but it's also not a full campaign. I would never do the long full campaign. Would I do one of the scenarios as like a 3-shot, or what I call a multi-shot or a mini-shot? Yeah. I mean, if I were to do it, it would be in that context. I think that could be interesting with the right group of players, you know? Karen Gillian or Kieran Gillen? That's a great question. I mean, Karen Gillian, a.k.a. super hot. It was a lot to track Big Die Energy. And I'm saying this is, by the way, as someone who loves gamist things and loved Warhammer, and I loved Warhammer, the miniatures game. It was very fiddly. And I say that as someone who really likes games, but, you know, there were a lot of symbols, a lot of different colored dice, a lot of little, you had your stance tracker thing with the green dice and the red dice, and then you shifted your things and the cards, and there was a lot of stuff going on. It was cool. The party sheet was really neat, and, you know, you had the little tracker, little triangle shaped trackers that you tracked on it. It was really cool. It was all very cool, but it was a lot to cover, and it was very fiddly, and it wasn't always immediately clear what was going on. But I loved the we're going off on a time limit here. I don't actually know how much of this got kept in the DNA of Genesis, but I loved how the aggressive dice were better, but they would cause you to get stress, and the green dice were safer, but they would cause you to accumulate the weight tokens, the hourglass tokens, on your abilities and or on your clocks or your progress tracks. And I thought that was such a cool, that whole what it was, you know, cautious or aggressive or whatever, I can't remember the exact gaming terms. I thought that was so neat. I still think that's really neat. That's actually probably one of the things I think about the most. I love that from a player agency decision. And I love that you didn't have to think about what it actually meant, because all it meant was it changed the dice that you were rolling. And then you rolled the dice and found out. Like, you didn't actually have to know the rules. You just looked at the dice symbols. The biggest problem with that game, and I imagine it's the same problem with Genesis, is if you were only rolling 1 or 2 or 3 dice rolls per encounter or per scene, it wouldn't be that bad, right? If like a dice roll was a really big deal. The problem is like once you get into like a combat, and by the way, Legend of the Five Rings, 5th edition, which is a derivative, right? It was created by Fantasy Flight Games. It uses a sort of a toned down version of Warhammer Fantasy 3rd edition / Genesis. Because it uses symbols and it uses bespoke dice. It only has 2 different types of dice, and there's only like 4 symbols instead of like 7 or 8. But even Legend of the Five Rings works beautifully when you're making these sort of individual large scale checks, almost like the way that Temeraire was talking about making challenge rolls. But when you start going into like a conflict scene and you start having to make a lot of these rolls, it becomes very burdensome. And then we noticed that right away with Warhammer 3rd edition, which is like making that die roll and like using that dice and interpreting that dice pool as like a big montage moment. Very cool. Trying to use that system to like represent, you know, a 10-second combat round and 1 attack was painful. It may have TAS agent. I know Legend of the Five Rings does that, and it is kind of awful. All right, well, this was quite the journey, quite the fun. Fun was had by all. I hope you guys appreciated this. Again, I didn't quite know what to expect for this game. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you and say that like I'm like thrilled and jumping over the moon to play it. But I think, you know, we figured out what it was trying to do, and it's definitely doing something interesting, weird, but, you know, there's a cleverness there to it. There's a meta-ness to it that is very, you know, interesting. We'll say that. Would it be fun? I don't know. Is it interesting? Sure, I will give it that. Now, again, it depends on what floats your boat and what do you like to do. I'm a simple man. I like, you know, long swords and shields and 3 potions of healing and a belt pouch full of silver, and let's go kill some orcs and goblins. But I mean, I do like more complicated games as well, and more nuanced games, but this is a little bit further, you know. But there were some aspects of the game that I did enjoy very fully. And even aesthetically, I like that there's like this one, you are the D8 class. You're the only person with a D8 at the table. That's really neat, you know. That's really neat. And the DMPC was really awesome, and the GNS stuff. I mean, that was all such a great Easter egg. That was a lot of fun. So yeah, very cool. Thank you, Thaddeus, for putting this on our Patreon list. Thank you to the huge list of people who supported me tonight. Testy, Apex, Edward, Scotty F, Cal, Cephalopod, Insight, Avison, Clobster Roll, and Edward. I really want to say thank you so much for all of that. Hey, Thaddeus is here. Thank you, Thaddeus. Again, we're going to be a bit on a roll here. We crushed these goals, so I'm going to keep these first looks going, try to crush through some of these. I know that I think next Tuesday we're doing a game that was added by Kaz called Across 1,000 Dead Worlds, which I think is a solo game. As soon as Darth Gorlock is available, we're going to be doing his, which is going to be Wicked Ones, R.I.P., because it got finished, it just never got printed. But the next game that we will be covering is Pico, which was added by Bo just recently with some gold tickets that they managed to acquire. And Pico is made by Felix Isaacs, who did The Wild Sea. So this is his follow-up game to The Wild Sea. So interested to look at that one. That's the one where you play little bugs, believe it or not. And then after that, we've got His Majesty the Worm and Middle Earth Role-Playing Game, which was we just talked about that. And then should we clear through all of those, we will finally do a first look, and it's not fair because it's definitely not a first look because I've definitely played this game. We're going to be looking at Burning Wheel because we've never officially actually done Burning Wheel on this channel before. So that would be a cool capstone for that. So it's a first look, sort of, because it's not really a first look because I not only know the rules to Burning Wheel, but I've played Burning Wheel before. But we're calling it a first look because why not? Say, look at that. Copper checked out the comic book as well. So, but between all this stuff, we're in for a treat. So I appreciate that. Meantime, I'm going to continue to be doing some editing. If you watched our stream last night, you know that I was showing some footage that I had filmed at GaryCon, and I've just been trying to maybe do some other type of content that isn't just a live stream, mostly just, more like a vlog style where I kind of just wax poetic about ideas when I'm at these conventions or if I'm traveling. I'm always thinking about role-playing games. So, turn a camera on and do a little bit of talking, a little bit more edited, maybe a little bit more cinematic flair, a little bit more B-roll, a little bit more ambiance than just me standing in front of my bookshelf all the time. Give it a little bit more pizzazz. So I've been trying to work on that as well. We got our Lord of the Rings, the One Ring game coming up, and hopefully going to try to get some more sponsors. I'd love to get sponsored by Darrington Press for, they're going to be doing a big push here with their new Hope and Fear coming out. I would love to get sponsored by them to do a first look or a deep dive or whatever into Hope and Fear, or maybe they could sponsor a 3-shot or 6-shot or something. Daggerheart campaign, that'd be pretty cool. That'd be really cool. So we're going to continue to do that. And of course, we're going to keep doing first looks and talking about RPGs and GMing and advice. So if you do have any thoughts, comments, and questions, especially if you're a member of our Patreon, let me know. That's what KLC chat, KLC content chat is for. I'm always trying to, produce content that you guys find helpful and useful. And that's what I'm here to do. And then on top of all of that, I'm in the process right now. I started today of building a schedule. I'm going to be running some more Patreon games. If you remember last year, I ran a couple Torchbearer campaigns for some of my patrons. We even got one of those campaigns put out to YouTube. If you're a Patreon member, you can watch the other campaign, which is private, just to our patrons. And so I want to do more of those. I want to run Daggerheart, the One Ring, Blades in the Dark. I mean, we'll see what we can work out with schedules being what they are. But we've got Avatar, The Last Airbender, or Avatar Legends, I guess is the name of the game. Blades in the Dark, the One Ring, Mythic Bastion Land. So there's a bunch of games on there as well. The problem, Cephalopod, is Darrington Press really is bad at answering their email. I will certainly send them an email and see, what's up. I mean, at the very least, Cephalopod, when I talked to them last, and I talked to them at Gamma at the beginning of March. When I was in Gamma, I talked to I went to they had a mixer. They had they brought me out, they wined and dined me along with a bunch of other people, obviously. It was really cool. And we were talking about stuff. And I was like saying like how I want, I was like, can I buy some of your Hope and Fear? And they said, you don't need to buy it. Like we'll contact us. We'll send you some copies so you can do more giveaways. Cause if you remember, we gave away 10 copies of the Daggerheart core game. And we gave away a collector's edition of the thing. In fact, that was paid for. That wasn't gifted. So, anyways, LTLDR, they were basically like, don't buy it, Derek. Like, we'll send you stuff. Like, you can do giveaway. We want to work with you. That'd be so good. And I was like, oh, that'd be cool. We were trying to do this, and we had the studio, and they were all like, oh, that sounds amazing. And they're very cool. They're very nice people, but they're very busy people, and they live in LA, and they're doing their LA stuff, and they're sometimes not. I am a nobody. I'm a small gnat. It becomes crickets very quickly. So that is unfortunately the kind of what's happening there. So, but persistence, it needs to pay off. So, what else? So, anyways, hopefully we'll get some of those games up, and maybe even some of them will end up making it to the channel, or at least to the patrons. I think that could be a really cool thing. So if you're not a patron, if you are a patron, I should say, I am hoping all these games will obviously be run remotely, virtually. I will almost certainly be recording all of them, and they will be made available to the patrons. Not all of them will make it to, because I want to respect my patrons. And if not everybody's comfortable with it, I'm not going to put it out on the internet. And of course, if someone's really, really like, I don't want anybody to see this, that's fine too. But most people are pretty comfortable with a smaller niche group of maybe a couple hundred people that they theoretically know being comfortable. So there could be essentially more what we call actual plays, right? Where I'm not really making a show. I'm just hitting record while I run games for people, what, Jams? They have that is true. But there's right. KOLC defies explanation in many ways. And one of them is that, I've seen channels that are a fraction of our size get sponsorships, get Raid Shadow Legends, get a bunch of, and we've never gotten any of that, So we have defied. That's why when we got sponsored for Tunnels and Trolls, it was a huge. I mean, they approached me. They emailed me and said, Derek, we love what you do, and we know you focus on some smaller press games, and would you like to help us out? I mean, yes and no. I could do better, Jams. I 100% could do a better job at it, and I need to be more business minded and about that. I'm not the most business minded person. So, oh, and in other news, again, I don't want to say anything, but I did get approached by someone who we were talking last night, I think, late night, about my Wilderfeast mega game. And unfortunately, for me to do my vision of my Wilderfeast mega game, it would require substantial reworking because I need to basically rebuild the game entirely, kind of from the ground up. And that would mean rebuilding the VTT from the ground up, because the VTT is designed for the core game. And I don't want people to have to, it's going to be played on the VTT. Anyways, a person was like, hey, I have a lot of availability in my schedule in the coming months. Can I talk to you about maybe helping you out there, No, I would not call it a completely different game, because it's very still clearly Wilderfeast. I'm just going from 4 stats to 5 stats. Does that make it a completely different game? No, but it certainly changes the way the VTT runs, right? And all that other stuff, Legends in the Mist was on the Patreon game list, but I didn't get a lot of responses about it, Thaddeus, so I don't think it's going to be in the first wave. I basically put every game that was in the top 8 of the most recent March Madness on the list, just to sort of put some respect on its name. But it didn't get a ton of feedback. Actually, I was just looking at that data. I think the games that got the biggest feedback were The One Ring, Avatar Legends, Blades in the Dark, Daggerheart, and I think those were the 4 that had the most, traction, the most clout. But I'll see what I can do based off of other people's schedules and my own schedule as well, too, Yeah, I don't think Torchbearer had a ton of activity, unfortunately. Torchbearer, Shadow Dark, Mythic Bastionland, I think didn't get a ton of Legend of the Mist. I don't think those ones got a lot of hype. I mean, I'm sure there are people who voted sure, I'd play it, but I mean, I'm really trying to, with this round, to really focus on, hey, what do the people who are sitting on a bank of gold tickets, who have put in hundreds, if not thousands of dollars into their patronage over the years, what are the games, if they're listing games as, this is a priority for me, I really want to play this, or I would definitely be excited to play this, I'm going to really try my hardest to get that game to the table, because, I want to do that. If somebody's for example, if somebody's now, to be fair, if a bunch of people put, oh, I'm casually interested, I want to try it out, right? That was one of the response options. Okay, that might be a great game to run as a 3-shot, right? I'm not going to run a 12-shot arc of that. If people just want to, try it out, explore it, have fun with it for a little bit, cool. That might be cool for a 3-shot, Right, so something like Mythic Bastionland, which didn't get a lot of heavy interest. People were like, oh, I'm kind of curious, I'd try it out. That might be really good, because I want to run, like I said, I'm going to run them in 3, 6, and 12 arc. You're going to buy a package. You're going to buy a 3-session campaign, a 6-session campaign, or a 12-session campaign, depending on the game, right? I think some games are better suited to longer duration games. So anyways, a game where people have just a little bit of interest, I'm probably going to try to run as a 3-session game. Now, if there's a bunch of people who are really excited about a game, that I'm more likely to run it as, at least initially, as a 6 or a 12-session game. So yeah, that's what it comes down to. So, alrighty, folks, that's going to do it for me. I don't know when I'm going to be back next. Theoretically, Saturday is Shadow Dark. And I do owe you guys a Shadow Dark stream. We did fill that goal up, so definitely need to do another Saturday or weekend Shadow Dark stream. I ended up going on to Evan's stream instead to talk about the dungeon mechanic that I was talking about during my Shadow Dark stream. And Evan was like, I love it and I want to use it. And except, Evan put his own little spin on it and his own, what he heard, he took what I was saying and, he took it to his own purposes. So I ended up doing that. And so now I'm like, well, damn it. Now do I have to come up with a new mechanic? I can't use that mechanic. It's like, but Derek, that's not even your mechanic. You just took it from Marvel superheroes. I know, but now Evan's using it. Junderlin, Torchbearer is great. And honestly, Junderlin, to be honest with you, completely honest with you, Junderlin, I made all those Torchbearer Roll20 assets and macros, and it'd be cool to actually get some more use out of them because, I did spend a lot of time and money buying all those pixel assets and in photoshopping them all and setting up all those JavaScript macros, which, to be clear, I did not write. Most of those JavaScript macros were written by ChatGPT, but, in theory, I did have to do some stuff. That's fair. I don't hate myself enough to play Torchbearer. That is a totally reasonable response. Anyways, we're gonna have some fun. I want to play some more games, play some games, and then of course all of this culminating in 9 weeks. We will be it's Thursday, right? So let's see, let me do the math here. It's Thursday the 16th, 23rd, 30th, 7th, 14th, 21st, 28th, 4th, 11th, 18th. Yes, in 9 weeks. I won't be here, or I will. If I'm here, I won't be here. I'll be in Columbus and I'll be hanging out with a bunch of patrons at NightCon Session 0 at the Origins Game Fair in Columbus, Ohio. So a lot of work. I need to get some stuff ordered. I need to tell myself not to overdo it. Don't overdo it, Derek. Don't burn yourself out. People just want to come and play games. They're not looking for part of the reason that I'm doing this at Origins was because if I did it independently, like if I got a convention center or a hotel and I rented a bunch of hotel rooms, that would be the only source of people's, entertainment and education or entertainment and fun. But I'm doing this at an existing game convention. So it's like, I don't have to be fully responsible for everything that you're doing because there is a whole other convention that you could literally go to. But, I want to make it nice. I know, Mark. I know. I hear you. I know. Luckily, and I'll be announcing some of this stuff lately. We did have a patron who very, very, very generously helped sponsor NightCon, so that is going to make it a lot more reasonable. You know me, I hate asking people for money. I mean, I've been very transparent about what the room cost, and I'm probably gonna have to spend money above that just for, maybe do some signs and T-shirts. I usually end up spending $25-ish or more per T-shirt, and if I get like 30 shirts, you can see, well, okay, wow, that's almost already $800, give or take, just on shirts. And so, the costs add up pretty quickly. It'd be cool to get, I want to maybe, I don't know if I want to get badges, but it'd be cool to get prints of like stickers, like if you've been to convention, you got the convention badges, the convention stickers, to show that you're part of NightCon. It'd be cool to maybe get some sort of NightCon badge with people's Discord names so that people know who people are. It's like, oh, you see somebody's name and you're like, I don't know who that is. And then you're like, oh no, I do know who you are. I talk to you all the time. Make things a little bit easier to make breaking the ice a little bit easier. Maybe get a cool sign or some cool signage. For the nights. It'd be cool. I don't know. I've never thought about it too much, but I don't want to overdo it. But yeah. Anyways, long story short, it's gonna be fun. And more importantly, I want to have fun. If I'm just running around with like a chicken with my head cut off, trying to keep all these plates spinning, I want to have some fun too. I want to get a chance to play with people and actually sit down and enjoy myself. So. I know, horribly selfish, but anyways, a lot of cool stuff coming up. I'm excited for it. So thank you again to everybody. Thank you to my patrons for supporting us. Thank you, Thaddeus, for supporting this first look and being the sponsor for this first look. Right. Well, that wasn't last time. That was 2024. Was it 2024? Yes. It was 2024. Yes. I think it was 2024. Last time I got drunk and passed out and missed games. Correct. But in 2025, that did not happen. But you weren't at 2025, were you, sir? You did not come last year. Anyways, it's been great talking to everybody. Love you guys. check us out, patreon.com/Knights Last Call and all that jazz. Hey, what's up, Jack? Coming in with a late one, right as I'm about to fucking step out.
Jackal Torn Moons tipped $5. Clinking beer mugs emoji.
There we go. Jackal, appreciate you appreciating me. Means a lot to me. You guys keep me going, and you guys keep this awesome and fun. And I love exploring these new RPGs with you. And again, I enjoy the width and breadth of our hobby. It is a fantastic hobby for that. Clinking beer mugs emoji. So good. Yeah, well, you know, this is why we're doing Session 0. It's why we're doing it Origins. You know, eventually one day, hopefully, we could do something, you know, on our own. That'd be pretty cool. If we could get like, if, you know, we're thinking we're going to probably get, I'm hoping we can get like between 30 to 40 people, 30 to 35 people, give or take, for NightCon Session 0. Like if we can get up to 50 or 60 people, we can really start to think about, you know, we have enough scale at that point where we can really start to think about doing something on our own. I think that'd be pretty cool. So going to GaryCon actually was really educational for me to see how they had grown from such a small con to such a big con. It was really cool. Everybody, I will be back most likely on Saturday to talk about Shadow Dark, Shadow Deep, Shadow Tide, or who knows what else, anything else. Otherwise, you can catch me on the Discord, of course. Always feel free to ping me and send me a DM and shoot the shit with me. That's why you guys are members of the Patreon, is because I like to hang out with you. I'll see you guys there. Otherwise, I'll see you next time on Knights of Last Call. GG.